All right, good evening, everybody. And welcome to the Milton Public Schools School Committee meetings for this evening, May 15th, 2024. We're going to first begin with our school choice open public hearing, and we'll then adjourn from that and transition straight into our regular Milton School Committee meeting. However, before we begin, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Also, before we dive into our regular business for this evening, I would like, as a committee, to take a moment of silence in memory of Edie Chase, who passed away on May 10th. Mrs. Chase dedicated 30 years to the Milton Public Schools. She served in various positions. Over her career, Edie served as a teacher and a teacher's aide at Collycott Elementary, a secretary in Milton High School's front office, the secretary at Cunningham Elementary, and lastly, as the administrative assistant to the assistant superintendent for curriculum and personnel. So on behalf of the Milton School Committee, we would like to offer our condolences to Edie's family, and we'll just take a moment to honor her right now. Okay, thank you. So, as I mentioned, we are beginning tonight with something we do just once a year, and that is our open school choice hearing. This is an annual procedure that we undertake for the Milton School Committee, and Milton is not currently a school choice district. So I would love to defer to you, Dr. Pavlicek. I think you're going to just share an overview of school choice. We'll be able to discuss that, make sure anyone in the audience who would like to share a perspective on this issue has the opportunity to do so. And then we will actually take our vote on this in our open session regular school committee meeting later this evening.
So school choice is, as the Chair mentioned, is a vote that every district takes every year. The way it works is basically districts that have available seats, so you can tell where we're going immediately. Districts that have available seats can open them up to residents from other communities. What it does is we first would take a vote to declare ourselves a school choice district. We would say we have X number of seats in this grade, Y number of seats in this grade, and so forth, and say what we have, how many seats would be available. And there would have to be basically a lottery of people who applied for those seats. The children who would enroll would become our students for the duration of their academic careers. There is a nominal fee paid by the Commonwealth, approximately $10,000 a student, to help support those students. But you are, for instance, you have to satisfy whatever needs that student may have. So there could be a student who's special needs, could be a student regular education, they could have, 504 plans or whatever, but it is basically a lottery. We're not responsible for transportation for those students, for instance, if they live in another district, but we would be responsible for everything else with regard to program. They would be our students. They could play sports, they could be in clubs, et cetera, and so forth. Historically, the Milton School Department has not participated in school choice. This tends to be a program that is used in Western Mass, in some of the regional districts. It is used in some districts where they have lower enrollment and are near districts with higher enrollment and want to attract some students and so forth. So it hasn't been traditionally a very Eastern Mass thing just because of the demographics. So that is where we are. I mean, the state has a list of districts that are school choice. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember how many are out of 351, but it's a smaller number that are school choice. So that's the quick overview of school choice. As I say, historically, we have not participated. Given our current enrollment situation and the tightness of our facilities, it's hard to imagine how we could accommodate more students than we're accommodating now. So if you were looking for a recommendation of the administration, we would not support being voted a school choice district.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I will see if any members of the community would like to speak on this topic. But just to clarify one thing first, when is the time, it's transparent, sorry. When is the time for school committee to pose their questions about this discussion before we are taking our vote? Would it be now? Sort of in relation to your presentation?
This is an open hearing. Anyone can speak at this point. School committee or citizens.
And we just will take our binding vote on this topic will occur in the
in a regular
subsequent meeting?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And I didn't mention, but this is a vote that has to be submitted to DESI by June 1st.
Right.
Which is why it's on the agenda for tonight.
Right. Okay. So I guess if it's okay with everybody, why don't we see if members of the community would like to speak first, and then we can open it up to what questions or comments any of us may have. So if you are here at our open school choice hearing to share your thoughts on this decision with the school committee, can you please raise your hand at this time? Is there anyone in the audience in person who's here to speak on this topic? Okay, I don't see anybody. Is there anyone joining us online?
There are no hands.
If so, can you raise your hand, please?
There are no hands raised online.
Okay, in that case, let's just move to questions and comments of school committee members. Make sure that we're understanding the considerations prior to voting. Anyone have any questions, comments?
I mean, my only comment, I guess, it's administration said it. Unfortunately, we don't have seats.
Right.
We don't have the space available to be able to accommodate students from other districts. So it is sort of the constraint that we have that's real. Mm-hmm. And we talk about that all the time. Oops, apologies.
So as I was saying, the constraints is something we talk about, which is the space in our ability to accommodate additional students. We're just not able to do so across all grades, so it makes sense.
It is rather straightforward, I mean, given our situation.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, there are districts where there's declining enrollment.
Mm-hmm.
It's a district that maybe an adjoining town has a number of students who would like to attend but don't live there. In those cases, it can be helpful to fund additional programming and things like that and provide an avenue for other people to attend. But yeah, I mean, right now we're struggling with the numbers that we have in terms of space, so I think it's fairly straightforward.
I'm getting hold on a second. Someone's saying they can't hear us on TV or online.
I think I'm on. I'm on.
Yeah, I just got a similar message that folks.
Okay,
I can hear you on the Zoom.
okay.
Okay. Should
That's
we
okay.
yell or
What was that?
should we be really loud? No. Will that help?
I think that's good.
Okay.
Can we put like a little blurb that says we're working on it?
Technical difficulties. Yeah.
Hold up a piece of paper.
Yeah, we're sitting around waiting for that.
I
I
don't
know
think
the
we
Milton-
can keep talking until it comes on. Sorry.
Well, it's a good sign that people are watching.
You can keep going, we have the recording anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's also going to be dependent on whether we resolve it, so it could be your,
for a while.
so just proceed.
Okay.
They're getting the audio. It's just not live streaming audio, I think is what the issue is.
Yeah, he's saying
On their feed.
it's not coming through on the TV, but
Yeah.
they'll have the recording of it. We're still
So
meeting.
folks can join by
Can
Zoom.
we let people know to listen
Join by
on Zoom?
Zoom.
Okay, but anybody who's having this problem can't hear us. Tell
No,
them
that's
to-
what I'm
I think your
saying.
idea of the sign is a good one.
Yeah.
Does someone have poster paper and we could hold it?
Okay. Sorry, everybody.
Inventive.
I'm gonna need to write like.
It just went to Zoom.
No, that's just
that's
my
you.
that's just my screen that you're looking at up there.
Well, here you go. Just please watch on Zoom.
Except
Wherever
for
that screen is, if you can see it. I think it's that one. It's that,
that one over there with the red light.
The red light.
Here you go.
Front of it.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
I've been much more professional than this.
Yeah, that's probably.
Here you go. That was very helpful. That was smart. Computers. I didn't even
Please
think
watch
about
on Zoom.
Flexibility. That's what I'm a teacher.
I think I'm gonna save this though for.
Sorry, I hope I didn't read this.
So,
Okay. So, all right. Where were we? We were saying we have no one here to weigh in from the community. We understand this is fairly straightforward. And we do know that if we don't take a specific no vote, the default is that any school system does become a choice district. And so that is why when we get to it under the chair's report in the next portion of the meeting, we will need to take that vote. So any last points about school choice?
I'd just say I got contacted by a couple people because I think it's gotten more attention with the Newton
Yeah.
vote, right, and that
Yeah.
thing and the globe and things like that. So, yeah, that's I think the point you made earlier, which is that is an annual thing that we do.
Right.
It's not new. I appreciated the data on who does and doesn't. There are actually way more districts that are opted in than I thought. I thought it was a small percentage, but it's more than half are participate in school choice, which I thought was that's just something I didn't know.
I think it's interesting that the years.
Oh, your microphone is not on you.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
put your leash on.
What are you gonna do with us?
This meeting's going great. Crushing it.
This is,
All right.
yeah, let's pull ourselves together, everybody. Okay. So, do you want to restate what you just said?
I'm good. I'm all right.
Can you tell me what happened in Newton?
Newton had a vote on, I think their superintendent requested to be school choice, and so their committee voted on it. And they ended up voting no against the
see.
superintendent, is my understanding. But
I see.
there was a lot of community discussion because I think their enrollment is shrinking, right, as one of the things
I
discussed.
see.
So it was a way to fill seats.
And that happened before the contract or after the teacher contract conversation?
That was after the teacher contract. Yeah, that was in
Yeah,
the
we-
last month or.
Yeah, the last
I
couple of
see.
weeks.
Thank you for the cliff note.
Okay. So in that case, I'll make a motion to adjourn this school choice hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. So this school choice hearing is adjourned. And at this time, I just call to order our regular school committee meeting. And so the first thing for us to do on this is just, as usual, approve our agenda for tonight. Does anybody have any changes that you'd like to propose in terms of things to change order or remove from the agenda?
Could we have the school committee student presentation come before so that they can go home earlier?
Yes, before the community schools.
Yeah. Is it okay?
Sure, that makes sense. Lisa, I actually don't know if we're having the Climate Action Planning Committee report this evening or not. I did speak to Lisa Troy, our representative, about joining us at this meeting, but I failed to follow up with her to confirm today if that would still work. So I don't see her here yet. If she joins, we can go ahead and have the report. If not, we can do that hopefully at the next meeting. But we'll move forward with the rest of these reports. Great, so let's just move then to our citizen speak, which is the portion of our time where we welcome members of the community to share perspectives with us. We set aside up to 15 minutes for this portion of the meeting. And whereas the school choice hearing part would have only been around that topic particular to our vote on school choice, this can be on any topic for speakers to speak up to 3 minutes. Is anybody here in the audience to share something for Citizen Speak? If you're online hoping to participate in Citizen Speak, can you raise your hand at this time, please?
No, there are no hands raised.
They're all our people.
Okay. All right, in that case, we can move right to the superintendent's report and the student representatives.
All right. So a couple things I wanted to share tonight. One, town meeting, 3 days. We were able to present on the third day, and it was just really, really wonderful to see the support for our budget. I thought there were some good questions as well. I kind of have a lot of thanks to give to the school committee, to the community at large, to staff, everyone who was a part of helping to create that budget. And I think investing in a long-term plan to really look at budgeting our vision and thinking about those two things together. So I was excited for kind of to get up and talk. I'm glad that we saw that support, and I feel like as we go ahead in the years to come, I'm really hopeful in terms of working really closely with the town and thinking about this. Again, I think I've heard it from a number of community members over the last months of kind of wanting to budget from a different kind of frame of mind as opposed to just kind of how we've always done it. And I think that's a real opportunity for us to do more things for students. So that was one of my big takeaways from that. We are continuing to meet with Aero Street, who are the architects that were hired as part of the new school building project. And staff have been coming together, so they've been coming into Pierce, and they've been doing visits to all of our schools. They've been asking a lot of questions. We are in that design phase right now. We've had a number of meetings. We've done some site visits, which I think I mentioned previously. Tomorrow is the preschool day. So from 9 to 12 tomorrow, the preschool team is coming to talk about their vision of what they would like to have. The current space they're in wasn't designed for them. They grew into it. So I think it's a a neat opportunity for them to talk about and envision what could be. For those of you that don't know, the current design plan is grades 7 and 8 upper middle school and a preschool. And so it's been an interesting conversation throughout the last months in bringing those two groups together and kind of thinking about like, you know, the very beginning of students' education here and then this real kind of transitional time too. So that work continues. We are, you know, I've been giving updates on the implementation planning coming out of the priority report. We are kind of, I think, well on our way in developing that plan. Meeting next week with the leaders. We broke up in the similar structure to the priority report where we have academic excellence, climate, culture, well-being, operations, facilities, and finance. Those are the three groups that we formed. The leaders of those three groups are coming together next week, and we're going to look at what we've developed in those three separate groups and start to bring them together. We have one more meeting with that full leadership team. That's our 30 leaders in the district to really kind of take a look at a rough draft, and then we'll kind of take it to the finish line by the end of June. That document will be used to do all of our planning for next year. So we're kind of backloaded as opposed to front loaded, which makes that a little more challenging. Normally at this time of year, we have our PD plan done. We kind of know what's happening. We're waiting because we want to be really directed by this work. So I did share with our leaders this week, we're going to have a kind of end of June retreat day with all the leaders to really kind of start to think about what do we need to accomplish over the summer. Once summer hits, people kind of go bing, bing, bing in lots of different directions. So we want to be sure that we know exactly what we're doing in July and August and have a bunch of retreat days in August to build this out, to continue to work together as a team, do that kind of team building work that's really important, but also really get specific around not just what is our PD, but kind of how are we consolidating the many, many layers of this into a digestible and understandable vision that as staff come back and we talk about, here's what we're doing this year, they're like, yes, we get it and we get why. So that's really exciting. It's what kind of drives me in this work. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And wanted to share, I think that the MFE Celebration for Education happened after our last meeting, and just want to congratulate them. I think they put on a great event. It was sold out. It was fun. Got to wear a baby blue suit, which I may wear again at some point. But it was great. It was great to see the community there. I had lots of great conversations and left feeling really inspired. So hats off to the entire MFE team.
Well, that's fun. Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah.
So do you or Peter want to bring in the students?
Wow.
Please go ahead. I was on Zoom, so I can't barely hear everything.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry.
So as you know, our school committee representatives why don't you all come up? One of the best parts of the month for Val and I are meeting with our school committee reps who bring so much incredible insight to anything we talk about. And they're here to share a follow-up of the work that they did. And this has happened over a number of months. For you all to recall, when the school committee started talking about the calendar and should days be added, what holidays should be recognized, we brought that topic to the school committee representatives and said, is this something that you think you'd like to take a leadership role in talking with students and getting the student perspective? And as we talked, it was clear that we had a lot of conversation at the adult level, but that we were missing an entire slice of the voice that we really need to be listening to. So it was exciting to hear about the research they did. I'm going to let them talk about their process, kind of findings. They're also excited to be part of a future committee that may be formed to continue to talk about this topic and talk about what kind of long-range decisions the school committee wants to make in this area. So do you want to introduce yourselves first, and then I'm going to leave it to you to just kind of take it away.
Hi, I'm Adam, representing 9th grade.
I'm Julia, I'm the senior representative.
And I'm Elias Carlos, and I'm the representative for the sophomore class.
And so what Dr. Burrows has shared is exactly right. As students, we were really excited to, over the past month, put together a research data collection just to understand what our fellow peers were thinking about in terms of the calendar. And so I'm excited to share more about our method for doing this research so that we could have meaningful conversations across the high school, including with students, faculty, and staff. So we wanted to align, some of our visions for a diverse, equitable, inclusive school community with, of course, logistics and the availability to have more holidays off. And of course, this is an increasingly important conversation to have as the school body looks more diverse. And so our survey began, I should say that we created a survey in order to understand how students were feeling, and their responses are going to help inform some of the work that the subcommittee does. And of course, how the school committee responds to this question. So it begins with a self-identification, just so we can know and extrapolate data on what students are responding to the survey, and based on that information, which demographics are most enthusiastic, least enthusiastic about these changes, and try to bridge some of those gaps. And because, of course, we want respondents to be well-informed about the questions we're asking them, Julia will talk more about those, we provided these culturally relevant definitions. For example, civil rights organization that defends Muslims described, to that community what Eid is, or the Smithsonian Museum for Asian Art explains why the Lunar New Year is so important to that community. So we thought that representation was important. And also, of course, we wanted to measure how familiar students were with these holidays. And so our questionnaire included a 4-scale question measuring how familiar students were with the holidays, even if they didn't personally celebrate them, which we thought would be important to know how they would wish or they would want to learn about these holidays or traditions. We included an option for respondents to join a focus group, and I'm so excited to say of all the holidays which we're talking about, at least one student is representing their tradition in our focus group, and so hopefully we can continue to have conversations with them, but Julia is excited to share more about the data we collected.
Yeah. So in the whole survey, we had about 84 responses, which I was really happy about. 94 being Milton High School students and 6% being faculty members. Like Adam was talking about earlier, there was really a wide range of demographics of those who responded. 72.3% of people identified as white or Caucasian, 16.9% as African American, 15.7% as Asian, 13.3% as Hispanic or Latino, and 7.2% as other. And also, 50% of people identified as Christian, 34.1% as non-religious, 7.3% as Jewish, 1.2% as Muslim, and 7.3% as other. And then talking about the individual holidays, we gave 3 different options of what students or faculty think that we should do for the holiday. So For Eid, 39.3% said we should have a dedicated day off. 27.4% said we should have an integrated celebration into the school day, and then 33.3% said that we should create a sort of attendance system that recognizes the impact of holidays on your absence. For Lunar New Year, 31% of people said dedicated day off. 42.9% of people said integrated celebration, and 26.2% said the new attendance system. For Diwali, 34.5% said dedicated day off, 27.3% for integrated celebration, and 38.1% for creating an attendance system that recognizes the impact of holidays. And for other non-religious or cultural holidays, 13% of people said dedicated day off, 34.5% said an integrated celebration, and 51.2% said an attendance system that recognizes the impact of the holiday. We also asked what kind of activities during the school day would students or faculty find the most engaging for these cultural celebrations. 60.7% said cultural performances or assembly presentations. 44% said interactive workshops or discussions. 59.5% said artistic displays or exhibitions. And then 63.1% said shared traditional meals. And talking about how they best feel, which of the following best describes the representation of your cultural or religious practices in the Milton Public Schools? So 20.2% said they felt it was very inclusive. 48.8% said somewhat inclusive. 22.6% said somewhat exclusive. And 8.3% said very exclusive. And then, as Adam said before, we also asked to rate their awareness about the significance of each holiday on a scale of 1 to 4. So for Eid, 9.5% of people said they would rate themselves a 4. 31% said a 3. 29.8% said a 2, and then also 29.8% said a 1. For Lunar New Year, 35.7% of people said they'd rate themselves a 4. 34.5% said a 3. 25% said a 2, and 4.8% said a 1. And for Diwali, 9.5% of people said a 4. 15.5% of people said 3. 34.5% of people said a 2, and 40.5% of people said a 1.
Okay, and so now that in conclusion, we've done a lot of great work. We've collected a lot of good data, and now I would like to discuss how we will take this beyond what we are doing right now into the future. So as this is an issue which needs to be worked out in a relatively small time frame, if we want a new, potentially adjusted calendar to be for the 2025-2026 school year, as the deadline is, I believe, next fall for it. I'm not sure. Winter, fall.
Yeah, it's
Winter, beginning of winter.
Beginning of winter. Okay. So, and we also have a very short amount of time left in this school year too. So, therefore, we have decided that it would be best to work alongside the soon-to-be-formed subcommittee focusing on this particular issue, including members of the MHS student government and the MPS school committee, that will provide us a better opportunity to engage in further discussion. And I think we will be able to obtain additional input from other individuals who will be impacted by these changes, like staff members, administration, parents, family members, guardians, and then other members of the community. And then class elections are upcoming, I think the first week of June. And that really fulfills the purpose of our student government. We're altering on an annual basis to really bring in and foster that voice of all students. And although we are hopeful for re-election, we're not guaranteed to remain in our positions in the near future. So then it would be our responsibility to communicate our goals with the new elected members so that they can take all of our great work and really expand upon it for a better future. And then lastly, I would like to thank all of you for your dedication to fostering the incredible sense of community and diversity Milton has to offer, helping us to make such improvements that have such a phenomenal impact, which we can see here. Thank you.
I was just wondering if you wanted us to share our Google form with you or the results, because like Adam said, we have a lot of people who left their email. So they said they wanted to, they were interested in planning conversations about the school calendar and these events. If you just wanted us to share this data with you somehow. Okay, I'll email it over.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Sure everyone wants to.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks. So thank you so much. Great presentation. Thanks for bringing these updates. And is it okay if we ask questions or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? I have a couple, but go ahead.
I know we've talked about this, but I don't think I asked this question. I'm just wondering, I came into this topic, I mean, I said you come into every topic with preconceived ideas of what you're going to find from the study, like a hypothesis or an inkling, a hunch. Did the three of you, before you got the data from the students, did you think this is what we're going to find? And then did the data reflect some kind of new awareness for you, or did it reaffirm how you went into the study?
For me, I felt like from the student perspective, I have always thought that students just want the day off. I thought that would be reflected in the data a lot, but I didn't see that. I thought that people were very careful about deciding how we could celebrate these holidays in a meaningful way. And I thought that was really interesting to learn.
Yeah.
One thing that Elias's conclusion kind of highlighted was there's this sense of community and diversity. And I think, as Julia is kind of saying, there's an interest in the student body to celebrate that. And, so there becomes a question of, will I learn about, what's going on in the houses of my friends, what their families are doing on these days that I have off, or will I, rot away in front of the TV? Of course, there's that interest and also what feels like responsibility on students' behalf to learn and to celebrate the diversity that they're now surrounded by or increasingly surrounded by.
Very good.
I love that you were highlighting that element, and that is what we want to do, right? Push ourselves to do better with honoring and celebrating the diversity that we do have. So I'm wondering about, and I don't know if your data was able to be broken down to this level, but since you did collect the demographic identification data, I'm wondering if you noticed any trends in the students who were seeking a day off. Were students requesting the day off sort of representing the tradition of that particular holiday? Do you know what I'm asking? So in other words, was there any correlation, like were Muslim students more likely to request that Eid be acknowledged by a day off rather than, because I think what I'm curious about, I feel like this is something to explore through the advisory committee task force or whatever we create. Is there a way to potentially like ensure that we do that celebration, education, like the learning and kind of community building around the holidays? And it may or may not take place on the day itself, because there might be some days where everybody who's truly celebrating that holiday is taking a day off, even if we don't have school off, because they are with their family, they are participating in, you know, ceremonies and traditions outside of school. So I'm just kind of curious if you saw any of that coming through.
I didn't look at the correlation specifically because I didn't go through each response, but it is something that we could definitely do as a group together.
Yeah, that's great.
Like go through the responses and look at the demographics compared to what they responded to each question. I think that would be very valuable.
Yeah.
Do you have other questions?
Go ahead.
So I have a comment. One first, thank you for bringing the student voice into the conversation and for being so thoughtful about how you're gathering the information. And I always find that with research, right, it often leaves me with more questions than answers. So I'm wondering if you were to speak to the top three sort of questions or insights that you're still pondering as you reflect on the data. What are those things? And you know, you have ideas of how you would like to see those questions answered.
One person joked in reply to a question about what is the best way for us to celebrate, or what do you envision as being one of the in-school celebrations? They joke that they don't trust the school necessarily to make food, you know, representing that. And so, I'm sorry, Dr. Burrows. So in some ways, responding to your question, there's the want to, as a school community, celebrate these holidays, but also there should be the reserve to know, in some cases, when to listen more so to the students who are actually celebrating the holidays, and what the chairwoman is saying about how some demographics may be more apt to respond in a certain way is true in some cases, but in other cases, there's also a response that's much more nuanced, and it's that, you know, their tradition, their holiday is sacred to them, and they, you know, don't want it to become, you know, some sort of poster or token inside of the school community. And so there's that, you know, interest and curiosity in some ways to celebrate, but also necessity to be, you know, listening ears and have some reserve in many cases to listen to the students who are affected. And that's why we're so excited about the focus group.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you made that comment, because sometimes the intention is good, but sort of the way it plays out, it doesn't quite, you know, get received that way because it wasn't thoroughly thought out, or was it consulted with the group? Yeah, thank you for saying that.
Something that really stuck out to me was the differences in the levels of awareness for each holiday that we asked about. It seemed like people really knew or identified that they knew more about like Lunar New Year than they did about holidays like Diwali or Eid. And it brings up the question, like, how can we bridge the gap so people understand more about different cultures and not just one?
Yeah, the English department, they've recently made some, or here at the high school at least, they've made some adjustments for senior year courses. Instead, you know, they sort of took away that course for, and instead they they made all these new classes that like I think there's a sports one, a nature one, But I think if that could be sort of expanded upon to include, like, I think we also have African American literature. Yes, if that could be expanded upon so that we can, or so that the student body can learn more about different cultures, I think that would be a great addition to the school and to awareness.
Can you talk a little more about the focus group? It's really exciting that you mentioned you have students self-identifying as, so is that something you're like already planning to do? Is that, I think I may have missed that in your presentation. Is that like something you're thinking about just for the future, but we have people to contact who are interested, or are you going ahead and holding that focus group?
Yeah, so the focus group would really concentrate on students inside the school who, have a particular interest in. Actually, for the first time, this, population of students in the focus group are representing, Eid, Diwali, Lunar New Year, and talking about why it's so important to them, and then hopefully sharing some of that information to us as the school committee reps.
Great.
And us describing that, in updates such as this one to the school committee. So we have a bit of a hierarchy.
Okay. Flow of the, so is that something you intend to do like before the end of this school year, or maybe looking into next year? It's fine if you haven't decided. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Because I'm excited.
We'd love to do it this school year, and there's opportunity to do it. It's just a matter of course, dates and timing. But in the meantime, we're keeping them engaged with, questions about, for example, how did we do with the Greek euro in the cafeteria?
I think it's great that what sounds like it started as a discussion around calendar events, like turned into, as you were just talking about, a bigger perspective on how can we include that either in the curriculum or in courses to kind of expand people's knowledge of it. And I'd be curious to see if there's more that comes out of your focus groups, if there are other ways to kind of raise awareness or understanding of the different holidays and different cultures. Because I think that's probably, sounds like maybe an unexpected outcome of it beyond the calendar, but I think that's great. I'll be just really curious to see what else comes out in your groups.
I have a question. So you mentioned that how the leader for the next year is usually chosen in June. Do you think it makes logical sense to do it in June or do it the beginning of next semester, next school year?
I am grade 9, so I'm still getting familiar with not only the course selection here at the high school, but also how student government works, because it's kind of, in some ways, esoteric. Information is not easily available. However, I'd love to hear what Alice and Julia, as seasoned members, are thinking about.
It's a good question. I think it would be beneficial to move it. I think it helps logistically to have it at this point in the school year to help prepare for next year and have everyone know what their position is and what they're doing. But last year, my junior year, we had a spot that was open even after everyone was elected in June. So we had another election in September that worked perfectly So I think either could work.
But personally, I've really liked how we would get elected in June, because then we can start off the year strong, and we would be able to plan over the summer, which it provides so much opportunity to really just that tail end of August, start working. I think, I don't know, my freshman year, last year, it felt incredibly short in my time in this position, because I think elections were like late September, so it was there was less opportunity in the beginning of the year to start working. But I think, and even if I don't know if we could move for freshman year elections, we can move it back to like the first week of the school year or the second week. I think that would be beneficial.
So I know 2 of you will be back. One of you definitely won't be.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. It's been a wonderful year.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Julia. You've done a lot in your time here.
Thank you so much.
Student leader. Thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you for
including
having me here in these meetings. I feel like I've had so many opportunities because of this, and I'm excited to raise my voice the same way in college.
Great. That's awesome.
Lucky to have you.
And thank you, Bao, for stepping into this work this year.
Oh, it's such a joy. We just chat and we like talk about stuff, and it's very casual. But we have a lot of things done. Right, had great conversations. So no, it's nothing at all. It's Dr. Burrow's leadership.
Yeah. No, it is great to have a leader who sees the value of student voice, for sure. That's and this is like one aspect of that, and it's really great. So we need to keep talking about the actual process for setting up the advisory committee / task force, whatever it would be called, the time frame, the process of identifying the students who would serve on it, as well as community members. So I'm not sure when is the right time to push that forward, but
I wonder whether at the summer retreat would be a time to put that together.
so because you're thinking, is that the best time for that committee to do its work would be in the fall?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good for the community to kind of hear too, that that's sort of the time frame people can be expecting, that we'll look, and that way we can reconnect with student representatives through that process to make sure we get student representation in that group.
I have one more question just to wrap up. So we sent out the surveys, and 84 students or 84 participants. Did we ever like make a summary of what you just shared and share back to the community so that they know what the result of the survey was?
We made like a mini summary in our speech document, but I can put together another thing to put out.
Like,
would be helpful.
What you just did is perfectly fine. I think. Like, it just like the transparency and also like responsibility of like you did the work, you collect all the data, you analyze this, and you it's time to share back the result to the community.
And I think we talked in one of our meetings about using this data and passing this off to that committee that gets formed.
Okay.
And that can be kind of one of the kind of foundational pillars of their research. So that's another way that maybe that information can be shared, is from that committee out. And you might want to, based on that data, and I think it came up in some of the conversations, but you might want to dig a little bit deeper in a couple different areas based on what you found. Like, wow, that was interesting. Let's dig a little deeper here, here, and here. and you'll come back from college, right?
Take a few statistic class.
You might be busy.
Maybe a little bit.
Just to add on to that, because that could be something that then informs the focus groups, sort of like informs the conversation around it. So if you have, and it might just be conversation starters or a way to kind of dig in deeper on it, to use the data that you have, or if there are questions that have come out of it, to then use in the focus groups.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next on my report is community schools. And Martha Sandoval, who is our intrepid leader of community schools, is here to share information on the changes that we've made going into next year. It's a topic that we have, as a group, have been discussing throughout the year, and obviously the team has been looking at, talking about, and responding to what we all know is growing community need and interest in community schools programming. So I'll hand it off to you to take it away.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Martha Sandoval, Director of the Milton Community Schools Programs. Thank you for having me back here. I want to share with you today and present, as Dr. Burrows said, a plan for expansion for community schools, particularly for the after-school program. This plan, we did a lot of work, and we considering multiple factors based on safety, staffing, space, cost, and quality. But before we jump into expansion plans, I do want to give you a quick update on where we are right now. So the first few slides is going to show you just a kind of reminders before we talk about expansion plan, again, where we are in terms of staffing and cost. So if we can go to the next slide. So this is information that you've seen before. We just updated this chart in terms of how Milton Community Schools is in context with other programs and districts. So most of these programs that we're comparing to are either nonprofit organizations or that they're school-based programs that operate very similar to Milton Community Schools. So it's a little bit hard to see, but what's important to highlight here is that Milton Community Schools continues to serve a large number of participants at each side in comparison to other districts. Also, our tuition rates continue at lower rates, which makes the program a great choice for many of our families. And so highlight that we plan on keeping the same tuition rates for the upcoming school year. Going to the next one. Thank you. So this is just as a reference point of how community schools is organized with staff. We have a multi-site staff. We have a high school counselor coordinator, different enrichment specialists such as Mandarin, Jashindo, and we recently hired a great performing arts teacher. We're very excited. And then you can see each school has a dedicated team led by a site supervisor who oversees both the before and the after school programs. So this is just as a reference. So I'm very excited to share this. So we, community schools recently engaged with the National Institute of Out of School Time, NIOS for short. This NIOS from Wellesley Centers for Women at Wellesley College. They have, for 40 years, they've been supporting the healthy development of children in families in out of school time settings, particularly before school, after school, summer programs, and so on. So we engage with them to review our programs and provide some guidance and do basically a quality assessment. So our goal, meeting with NIOS before this, we talk about, our goal is to gain an understanding of the methods to improve students' experiences and support their physical and social emotional development in our programs. So in the first round of observations that took place very recently as of February, we are in the second round of observations as we speak. We received very great feedback, very positive feedback in terms of quality and how we deliver our programs, and particularly this is only the after-school program. We're also going to be assessing our Camp Cunningham summer program. However, NIAS made a note of items that are impacted by our current staff-student ratio, and you can see it in the following areas. In terms of relationships, overall positive relationships, but noted the inability for staff to engage with all youth and show interest in youth as individual due to numbers or large numbers, particularly in the arrival and engaging with youth. In terms of activities, being in large groups for good portions of the day, that limits the ability to promote ongoing learning and problem solving, strategy, and focus and concentrating. So this is, our program after school is crucial. The outdoor and indoor playtime is crucial and big part of our programs, but we also have different enrichment activities within, and those can be a little bit challenging to deliver when large numbers happen. And obviously group sizes, I don't need to go into details about that, right? Okay, so when we talk about safety, the most important factor to consider is our staff-children ratio. The max recommended child-to-staff ratio is 13 children to one adult, one qualified adult actually, and for younger kids it's a 10-to-1. Even though our programs are not currently licensed except for Camp Cunningham, one of our goals is to align to the safety-driven ratios recommended by DESE and EEC. So we have made lots of advancements this year in terms of staffing, and however, we continue to experience recruitment challenges in this sector, and this is across the board. It's an obstacle, unfortunately, to achieve this goal, as the current ratios show in this graphic. Okay, so we're still talking about present. So how much would it cost to get community schools, particularly again, the after-school program, into the recommended children staff ratios with today's enrollments? So this table shows the projected salary expenses for this current fiscal year for the existing 70 positions that we currently have. In our analysis and our research, we will need to get into line with DESE and EEC recommendations. We need to incorporate 36 additional positions for today's enrollments at an estimated cost of $690 for this current year. And I can explain a little bit more about what these positions are in a few more slides. So up to here, that's where we are today. We can go on the next one, please. Oh, this has not the slides that we... That's the report. Okay. I had some slides. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Yes, there were some slides that were shared, not up on the screen. Okay. No worries. So,
which slide are you looking for?
I sent a slides just as expansion plan 24-25 community schools.
I think I just...
It's very similar information. It's just it's easier to go through that.
This is expansion proposal school committee, May 24th.
Yes, that's the report. That's the PDF. I like the slides.
Do you want to email them to me and I'll...
We can keep going. Is that, are you okay with that? Or, and I can share the slides later on too. Sure. Now let's talk about our expansion plans for after school. We are committed to serve more families in our programs, and the efforts have not stopped. We have expanded Kim Cunningham for this year. So we actually went from 187 participants as of last year to 247 participants this year. That's a daily attendance from 110 to 150 as of this year. Also, it's very important to mention that, and I'm sure you heard about the changes that we're making for next school year in terms of after school choices. So you can have a 3 days choice or a 2 days choice. And that automatically will help us serve more families that without compromising our daily capacity and safety. We conducted a survey starting in the winter time, and we had about 158 responses, and it basically show the 5 days option continues to be definitely dominant with about 68%, and then it was pretty much divided in between the 2 and the 3 days with the 16% for each option. So a lot of the calculations and estimated figures that you see here, they're based on those results. Okay, perfect. So this is what our target structure will be for after school. In this case, I'm showing you just as an example, the Cunningham site. But basically, all of our vacation programs and the summer camp programs are mainly successful because of the guaranteed access to space and how they are structured. So it's smaller groups of similar ages, in this case, kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, and then we group 3, 4th, and 5th grade. Ideally, this is the same structure that we want to implement in ACE. With appropriate staffing and space. So in this scenario, this is our expanded scenario. We're adding 27 participants that are currently in the waitlist for the Cunningham After School program. And all positions here are presumed to be filled by employees working 5 days a week. However, in reality, we accommodate staff working less than that. So 4, 3, even like 2 days a week, which necessitates an increase in total personnel beyond 65 positions, which I will outline in the next slide. Okay, so these are positions that we are suggesting to operate and increase capacity to maintain the recommended ratios that I talked about earlier and keep our quality standard. These also supplement both existing and vacant positions. So we have an assistant director that it's a full-time position that will help manage the day-to-day operation for the before and after school programs and school vacations and the 6-week summer programs, as well as coordinating recruiting, training, support, and direct supervision of personnel. We are also proposing to add kindergarten coordinators under the site supervisor direction and responsible for overseeing all the kindergarten aspects related to the ACE program. We have a large inquiries of incoming kindergartens next school year, and unfortunately very, very limited seats because of the tight ratio that we have to maintain for safety purposes. So these will allow us to increase the kindergarten program as well. These are, by the way, not new position. Kindergarten coordinator, this position was existent prior to the pandemic as a K-1 supervisor at each site. We are also adding attendance monitors. You might think, what the heck is that, right? So it's the most crucial time during after school, especially is the transition between school and to after school. Is try to keep track on every single student. They're supposed to be there, and even when they come to after school, sometimes they go to different clubs, so they move within the program, or they are actually sign up for fencing or for karate or for Mandarin. So we have to make sure that these students get to where they are. So attendance monitors will definitely be completely responsible for managing and recording this daily attendance for safety purposes. We are.
Martha, I found those slides. If you want to,
Sure.
I will just drop this and
Sure.
it'll take a second.
No problem. I can just keep
You can vamp.
going. Okay. All right, so we have also inclusion aids. This also will be under the direction of the inclusion coordinator. They will be responsible for assisting multiple participants that will require assistance or any type of accommodations to be successful in our programs. These positions are currently existing and we call them support staff. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to fill all the positions that we have available. We also have after-school registered nurses. That was also very recently, back in September, was approved to make it a union part-time with benefits position. That's unfortunately still vacant. We have 2 positions open right now. For next school year, there will be 3 positions. So basically for each site. The Collicut and Cunningham, we have 1 nurse there. And then I don't want to keep this super long, but the group leaders 1 and group leaders 2. So basically, the group leaders are adults who supervise and support the students and also plan and conduct enrichment activities on a daily basis.
You need to go further ahead. Or
Yep, we went past that. Next, keep going. Yep, that's where we are. Perfect,
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, where was I? Group leaders, yes. So we currently have multiple MPS professionals, lunch aides, college students, and adults of different ages as group leaders. So the difference with the group leaders 2 as lunch aides, and this is a project that is ongoing, we're working with Dr. Pavlicek on this, is basically merging the lunch aide position with an after-school group leader position to make it a full-time with full benefits year-round, so that way we can ensure coverage during school vacations and summer camps and so on. So we're working on all the details as of right now, but we're very close to finalizing that. Next slide, please. Okay, so I showed you previously how much it will cost us the additional 36 positions for the current enrollments as of today. Here, I'm adding another column where you can see to hire for expansion, we will need an additional 29 positions at a cost of $68K. So that will be a total of 135 positions that will bring us up to the recommended ratios. And again, this is adding the students who are currently on wait list. This number sounds super crazy, but prior to the pandemic, we had about 130 employees in community schools. The next slide, please. Thank you. So we're going to talk a little bit about space and nothing that you don't know. Overcrowding problems in schools with rentals. So community schools, we submit rental requests every year to secure space for or before and after school programs, as well as our vacation programs. But as everything, we also have a number of different challenges when we run programs, and then we run into sharing spaces with other clubs or and school events that take place and whatnot. Sometimes we pivot. We're able to very quickly, if we know ahead of time, we can plan for it, but sometimes that's not the case. So it makes it very challenging, and then especially for students who are used to a certain schedule, and then you have to move certainly a big group of students to cafeteria or on rainy days, school days, and so on. So that's another challenge that we currently face. But in the expansion plan, we will need access to more classroom now that we will have smaller groups and more staff. So the next slides, again, I'm not gonna stop too much here. It's just to basically just show you an overview, and it's the green color. It doesn't really show there, but basically that's the Collicut and Cunningham space use, all the outdoor space, gym, libraries, cafeterias, And again, what we will need will be additional classrooms, access to additional classrooms. The next is the Glover School and the Tucker School. You should, the report should look better with the green color there.
Yep.
Okay. And then let's talk about revenue. Yeah. So in this slide, I included the revenue, the actual revenue from last fiscal year, just as a reference. The second column shows our estimated revenue for this year with the current model of the 5 days a week for before and for both, yes, before and after school. But I also wanted to estimate what it would look like if we implemented the different 2, 3, and 5 days a week schedule as of this year with the current enrollment. That's the third column showing an estimated cost of $270K if we did that. And then in addition, the last column shows what it would look like if we implemented the schedule, but also added the students who are currently waitlisted. So you can see there's an increase in revenues of $155K by expanding capacity there. So it's just, again, just to kind of get you an idea of how those numbers will change when we add these new options as of next school year. Next schedule. Thank you. Okay, and it's a little bit challenging to see, but this estimated total, this includes all of our programs. This is not only after school, this is before, after school, summer camp, vacation camps. I'm not gonna bore you a lot with all these numbers. Happy to answer any questions about this. So what's important here to highlight is all of the side costs are for expanding the program have been incorporated here. And that's including our wait list and in aligning with the DESE staffing guidelines. The FY estimated profit loss is based on current staffing, salaries, and enrollment. There is a noticeable change from the previous year into this year in terms of vendor costs, and that's due to the implementation of the enrichment pilot program that I presented to you last year that has no additional cost to families. As I mentioned earlier, our recruitment efforts have produced better results this year. However, we're still not there in terms of our staff-student ratio. But you can see our salary costs also have increased from the previous year by $330K. The revenue projection for Camp Cunningham this year also shows our dedication to expanding our services to a larger number of families. So you'll see that big jump there. This year, we're projecting a surplus of $175K. While it might look like we're operating at a surplus, in reality, is because we're not fully staffed. So that's money that we should be spending towards salaries. And unfortunately, we're not there yet. Thank you. We can go to the next. And that's just our summary. So just want to mention again and remind that community schools programs were completely rebuilt from in 2021, and now our after-school program has large capacity of 130 students at each site. We continue to increase capacity where this has been possible. As I mentioned, one example is Camp Cunningham. Well, like I said, recruitment continues to be a challenge, which makes us and puts us always behind the recommended ratios. Despite this, we're delivering a quality program, and that was confirmed by the observations from our external partner, NIAST. Expansion is definitely possible, but we will require more staffing over and above filling the current open positions. Expansion will also require significant increase in the number of spaces that we will need to allocate for Milton Community Schools and ACE. The current financial surplus is temporary and will be eliminated if we reach the required staffing ratios. And longer term, because our analysis shows that we will be operating at a loss, we will need to revisit the current tuition fees, which are below the levels being charged us by neighboring towns. So that's my little summary. Although before I finish, I don't want to end before saying that we are really, and I'm talking about on behalf of my team, we are really, really proud of the work that we do in community schools. I think that bringing these type of enrichment programs to the district brings a value, and we see why we have wait lists and why families want to be in the programs. We were not surprised by the preliminary results from the first round of observations by NIAS of the delivery of the program. I'm the first one to recognize that these programs are successful thanks to the frontline staff, the leadership of all the site supervisors, and the teamwork that is happening across. So just wanted to make sure that I said that. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have a few questions.
Sure.
A couple of enrollment. So again, you had the kind of approximate enrollment by each site. Do we have total enrollment across the all 4 sites? You know that?
For after school or?
Yeah, I'm sorry, for after school, given that's the biggest cost driver.
So it's, our current capacity is 130 students at each site, at each school. So it's 520 in capacity. But we will increase that with the change in attendance. We are now receiving interest questionnaire forms. The information went out a couple weeks ago. It will close this Friday, so I'll have a lot more information to share with you about how that's going and the number of inquiries that we're receiving in terms of number of days and attendance and how that's gonna look when we're able to accommodate more families.
Do we have an estimate of what if we're talking about expanding enrollment, expanding access, like what are we expanding to? If we're at 520 currently, 130 per site, what are we trying to expand to?
The expansion was calculated with the current wait list that we have. So the Cunningham site had the 27 students on the wait list.
So is it the 157?
Yes.
For Cunningham.
So that would be like 628 if it's 157 per school or not?
It
It
really depends on school. Like Tucker doesn't have a wait list, so there was no estimate there for expansion. It's hard to kind of put a number just so I used the
Just trying to sort of,
wait list.
in my mind, I don't know if this is where you were going, I was trying to figure out sort of the increase in total cost.
Yeah.
And what that increase in students is.
Yeah.
That's where my brain is going, to understand.
Yeah, agreed. If we're talking about expanding, just a sense of what we're expanding to. Obviously, we're expanding to the point you're making, choice as it relates to the 2 days,
Correct.
3 days, 5 days.
Yes.
Which is, a different type of expansion, and great for those families. Do you happen to know the approximate Glover and Collicott wait list numbers? My recollection from your prior presentation was that the Cunningham wait list is the largest at 27, so those would be
Yes, so for Glover we have, and again, this information is off of March, because that's when I did the work. So Glover had 21, and well, that's like Tucker doesn't have anyone, and Collicott had 14.
14. Okay. I have other questions, but I don't want to take up the floor. Please.
Well, no, I guess I was wondering in terms of, I know that we're projecting a deficit, right, from as we look to expansion each year. But I do remember that there was some reserves, right, that we had.
Correct.
So at this particular point, you're not projecting sort of the increase in tuition, but that's because
we have a surplus, and we want to use that before. That's what we decided, that we didn't want to increase the tuition fees until Obviously, this is all, we have a lot of changes happening right now, including the changes in attendance. So we wanted to see next year where we are, and hopefully we can use that surplus and hire more staff. Retention.
The general conversation or the approach is we've got that 1 point, whatever it is right now.
1.7.
1.7. So we spend that down, not all the way down, but we spend that down
Correct.
to right size the program. And then we look at, for sustainability, once we've kind of got it where we need it, then we can look at what is our tuition cost and how do we make it sustainable and also meet the needs of the community, et cetera. So that was kind of our thinking around expansion. And it's nice to have that reserve to be able to spool up without having an immediate impact on tuition. So, potentially as we look at in this first year, as we hire the assistant director, like a more oversight, more ability to, again, like one person can only oversee so much. So we can also look at raising tuition incrementally as opposed to, we're hiring all these positions. Now we need to double the tuition to make it meet. So I think we're in a good position to expand as opposed to being at, net zero right now and then trying to increase.
So I'm wondering about the 2-3 days a week. Is there a way, it's nice to see that you have roughly like the same numbers looking for both of those. I mean, in a perfect world, like that would map across the schools and then the kids could just take each other's slots. Right. And I'm, this might be really oversimplifying, but if there was a way to do that, even if it meant that not every family receives a spot in after school who requests one, they may or may not get their first choice of a program. And it may be that you have to assign people 2 days, 3 days to just fill those spots evenly.
That's currently the plan, actually.
And then wouldn't it not need to result in extra costs to do that, right?
That's currently the plan. So
okay.
We're, again, these estimates were based on the survey results. Now we're monitoring the inquiries and they're looking different. It's definitely the 5 days a week is a high need, and it varies at each site. So right now we are not taking it all together. We are separating each site and calculating what that percentage for the 5 days will be at each school. So we might not be able to accommodate all of the families 5 days, but we'll call them and say, okay, but guess what? I have a 2-day option. Would you like that? So that's what we're doing right now.
Okay.
Can you share how many people so far have completed the form to express interest in the after-school program?
Yes, I can. Give me 1 second.
Sorry,
I can definitely give you that information. So we have about 553 inquiries for the after-school program across the board. We don't have a breakdown yet by schools or by choices. And for the early school is very low. It's about 135. So I'm pretty confident we're going to be able to accommodate everyone in before school.
How much longer do families have to complete that?
It closes this Friday. We put out a reminder and send out another. Do it.
So if I'm remembering correctly, when you presented last time, the extra classes, right, that are provided by outside vendors, those are now being offered free to families.
Yes.
Where we used to have to pay for those. So in some ways, right, tuition kind of went down because I remember paying sort of the initial and then paying all of that. So in some ways, I mean, right, if we were to incrementally think of raising tuition, I think there's a case to be made there that the offerings have gotten
Yes.
more. There's more offerings that are being made available.
Yes.
And that there was no cost to these vendors. In some ways I knew that there was the flat fee and there was the additional fee that,
Correct.
right?
Yes, we're absorbing that cost right now, and I estimated it last year to be roughly at 150, and it's showing it's about 100 for this school year. We're still recruiting new partners. We just brought up a fencing class, and it's been really successful. Kids are really like. I have a success story that I have to tell you next time, but because I'm just so happy to hear, how kids
Everyone's safe,
are
right?
showing. Sorry.
Everyone's safe.
Yeah, everybody's safe. Yes, everybody's safe. They did a demo. They show how safe the program is, and it's really, really successful. So again, I think the value of bringing vendors adds to it, and why families liked our programs. Fortunately, do we want to serve everybody? Absolutely. Can we do it right now? We're not there yet, but that's the plan.
If I remember right, those fencing classes, Mandarin class, Jashindo, they actually still have an actual cost, isn't it?
Yes, so, and it's $50 for 10 sessions.
Yes.
And the only reason why those particular classes have a cost is because we want to keep the same students. They have guaranteed access every week, basically. The rest of the classes, because we have 130 students to rotate throughout, the 10 weeks, not every student will be able to attend every week. So we have a cooking class, kids test kitchen, which is phenomenal too. The kids are eating stuff that I've never in my life have seen or anything like that, and they're like, "Oh, this is great!" And all the kids get to experience cooking. It might be once or twice in the semester, but they all have opportunity to experience that.
My kids came home from the kids' test kitchen with the I forget what it's called, some kind of tacos, but it was like taco meat, but it was made out of like cauliflower and mushrooms. It was vegetarian, and they really liked it, and they were eating it, which they would never eat that otherwise. So.
Yes, and they go home with a little recipe card and and what the ingredient of the main ingredient in the recipe is and where it's grown and whatnot. It's really a great program.
Question, how are you factoring in CAS in this?
Yes.
CAS is offered by individual schools.
Yes, so they're I believe, and I don't want to misspeak, but I believe they're run by the PTO or organized by the PTO.
It depends on the school. Some by the school, some by the principal.
Yes. So Collicott in Cunningham is called CAS, at Glover is called GLEE, and Tucker is I think it's Tucker in Richmond. We think it's great because then students who are not able to attend after school or they're waitlisted, they're able to attend those programs. But at the same time, it does create a little bit of kind of sharing space. It could be a little bit challenging, or students coming and going. We have a lot of students that go to these programs and then they come to after school. So again, that's why attendance monitors are definitely needed. I do, and I said in my communication that went out, I provided as an option. It's not a Monday through Friday, but I believe it's Monday through Thursdays in most schools. But it's something that students can stay after school and spend time with their favorite teacher or para or whatnot. I'm not sure if that's your.
No, just wondering again, when you think about demand, I'll be honest, I've had to sort of figure out the after school stuff. And CAS has been the one thing I've been like waiting for of like, okay, I get an extra hour at work, which is great. But just thinking about what opportunity is there to coordinate, right? If that's being offered anyways, it's an after school, choice. What's the ability to coordinate among the efforts so that it does result in greater capacity to help working parents? I find myself being very grateful that I am at the leadership level that I am and that I have the flexibility
to be able to step away, but I don't have to clock in and clock out the way some parents do. So I have that luxury, and I'm very aware of that privilege, but I do sort of think about folks who don't have that, who may be there earlier in their career, and showing up and being at, it matters.
Right.
So in a different way. So I worry about that. And so I keep thinking of like all the various opportunities there is for more coordinated efforts across, not only thinking about the student and their student's desire to, be with their favorite teacher or focus on that, but also thinking about just how do you lift that burden on working families.
Right. Yes. No, there's definitely an opportunity to do that. And we, at each level, there's some coordination. I don't want to say that it's full on, but there's definitely a level of coordination there. Unfortunately, I think we talked about this, that there's not really a YMCA nearby or a Boys and Girls Club nearby, or some type of organization that supports also after school. So a lot of the responsibility falls on us, and so I think that's part of why we're experiencing this. I'm part of, I recently joined what's called a network of extended day directors. It's all school-based program. That's where I obtain all this information and numbers and whatnot. And obviously we're not alone in this. It's a general problem. It's happening across the state. There's about 31 districts that are part of this, and we're all we share ideas, we pop up questions and emails, and everybody answers and share resources and whatnot. So it's in a way comforting to see that other districts are also experiencing this, and it's a definitely a universal problem with childcare. Although we don't describe ourselves as childcare, we're an enrichment program, but that's what families need. So we completely understand that.
I have a couple questions on staffing. So at previous presentation, you mentioned that obviously the limitations of hiring new staff is the biggest restriction in your ability to expand programming. So I guess I'm wondering, right, you have lots of needs, you're essentially doubling your staffing. To be clear, the biggest reason to do that is not related to the expansion, but related to just improving ratios within the current demand of the program. So regardless of if there's a move to expand the program, which I think is fantastic, the need to expand staffing is there. But I guess my question is, as you think about the seats in the fall, and you think about these lotteries and our desire to essentially expand to like 580 kids to take everybody off the wait list, how many seats are you expecting to initially offer based upon your anticipated ability to kind of fill the open positions? Like, how are you weighing those two things, given you've been trying to staff for 2 years now?
Yes. So we're not decreasing capacity. So we're still at the 130 starting in the fall. We've been talking to staff in the last month. They're undergoing through evaluations, and we meet with site supervisors, meet one-on-one with them, and they're in the process of asking if they're returning for next school year. So we're taking that into account. We also plan on, and I believe I've mentioned this before, but we've been paying overtime for school professionals, paras, and or lunch aides. They come and work into the after-school program. So that's still an option. We didn't stop it. It was supposed to be temporary, but because of the need, most of them keep going, but some of them, they're just like, I can't do it. It's too long. It's a very long day, 5 days a week. I need days off. And right now we have the college students that just finished and they're coming back. So we're like, you're going to see a boost in staff. But again, these are like temporary situations. But the number of seats we're not decreasing them. We're trying to keep in mind that the need is there. We're not taking it back and saying, well, we need to get back on these ratios. So what we're trying to achieve is, rather than decrease that, we are hiring, and we're hoping that with these changes that we're making, adding full-time positions, a director position, assistant director position that helps with the recruiting challenges that we have.
So given the fact that we need to increase staffing already just to meet the current ratios, and that we're going to start the year at our current ratios, not at an expanded ratio, at what point do we anticipate being able to actually expand the program, I guess is my question. Because like how many people do you need to hire before you can say like, okay, now we've gotten the current ratios and we're able to improve ratios to expand.
I wish I had a magic ball where I can tell you that. I think it will be depending on each site, depending on the selections of in attendance. But I think as we continue recruiting, then we can update the community and say, okay, we have met the ratios. Now we're ready for expansion. I don't have a timeline.
No, I understand that. But again, the first goal is to get to the suggested ratios, the 1 to 13, the 1 to 10.
Yes.
And then once we get there or below there, add capacity.
Correct.
So that's the hierarchy of the determination. Yes. So it's, hopefully we do great with recruiting and find great people, but it's, I guess maybe a fair way of saying this is it's unlikely that we are going to kind of early on in the year be able to solve some of the issues we saw at the start of this year with people at this table even, and like others of us praying that we're not in the situation for all the reasons that Dr. Miranda elicited. But at the start of the year, we're going to be essentially in the same spot we started last year, hopefully with actually some improved ratios, but from a capacity standpoint.
I think I'll be able to tell you more once the questionnaire closes this Friday, because then I can say, okay, I have good news here. I can tell you so far, Tucker is looking great. I think we'll be okay there. But it might be different for Glover. So I think in the next couple weeks, and we are going to be able to determine on where we are. Again, I think that by adding the different options, that right there will be able to add more families that we currently serve without affecting the daily capacity.
But we should, my read of this is we should be in a different position, even though we are kind of not at ratio right now in terms of where we need to be. We're making changes. We've made changes to how we hire these positions. So we've combined the lunch and recess aides with these positions. So those are now benefits eligible positions across both a Unit C position, they're called Unit C, and community schools. So I think that's going to make an impact in terms of, and we don't know yet. No, we've posted those positions and we're waiting to hear back, right? In terms of interest from our current lunch aides who are in those positions. So that's one thing that's very different from this time last year. We're also hiring the administrative positions, which means more people in the near term working on solving these problems and kind of basic oversight over the whole program. So I'm hoping, I think we're hopeful because we've been looking at this issue, and the challenge is hiring someone for 3 hours a day or hiring someone who wants to come in. There are a few people out there who want to come in for a couple hours in the morning, have some time off, and then come back and finish the whole day. But that's a long day when you start doing the morning and the afternoon. So that was our solution, was let's make these more attractive.
How many positions is that?
How many lunch aides, Glenn, do we have?
18 or 19 of the Unit C positions. Some of them do work already in
some of them already
community schools, but we're hoping that some of them may take the opportunity to do the longer day and become benefit eligible and so forth.
And they will be in a way that they're 5 days a week. So rather than give the option to 2 days, or I don't want to do 5 days, you have to work the 5 days to be able to be eligible for these benefits. So that will be a game changer for us.
Yeah, but I think I was trying to get at also similarly, right? So it seems like if we hired 36 more positions, we would get to the ratios. But then we would have to add another 29 positions in order to get us to expansion.
Yeah.
Right? So
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And so I just think it's not, and I'm all about quality, so I definitely say this, but it's a trade-off, right? If we're focused on the ratios, then chances are we're going to get there, but not necessarily to expansion, just because it's been so hard to get to higher up. So as much as I want to be optimistic, looking at the numbers, realistically speaking, will we get to expansion?
Yeah, I mean, that's 12 people out of the 18, who I think that's what was on slide, whatever, 8, that's 12 out of 65 people. So I'm with you. Again, I don't mean to be a downer. I'm very hopeful.
No, I know.
And I just know you've been, it's not an easy answer because you've been working on this. You, again, talked about this when you came to us in the fall, I just need to hire more people. I think the idea, 12 more people is 12 more people. That's fantastic. So I appreciate that effort.
Well, they're supervisors. They're not just, those are people who would be coming in to have oversight over our high school students, right?
Yes, we are, our program with the high school students, honestly, I don't think we'll be running the way we're running right now. Having the high school students has been such a huge help, but ultimately they're not adults. Right? We're mentoring them, so an adult needs to be there. They're the assistant to the adults. So those are the positions that are key, and they're difficult to fill. So we're targeting colleges. We're actually posted in the Council of Aging. We went and posted flyers there in the library or town hall and things like that. So this, the efforts did not stop. They continue, and so we're trying to. We actually hired new staff, and some of them are actually now professionals in the morning. So we're back to the overtime, But again, the effort is there. We're trying. We're going to keep trying our best to get to where we want to be, mainly safety purposes.
And I also really appreciate the focus towards, adding the inclusion coordinators, filling those inclusion aid positions, like fleshing out the nurses at each site, just to make our programs as inclusive as possible, because we know that has been challenging also.
Yes.
So would there be communication around that? So if, say, a family has a child with needs and historically, maybe there wasn't support there, is there a way to, is there outreach to families, or is there, not necessarily specifically to those families, but that sort of communicates that there is support for kids where maybe before they felt that there wasn't? So, right now it sounds like there are 4 that are needed, but then, but those haven't been able to be hired, correct? Like those
Correct.
pieces. And then for the expansion, you would need another 4, and similarly with the nurse. So even if it's like a child who's diabetic or something like that, where the nurse isn't available, so there's not the comfort of sending your child there.
Correct.
So is there the ability to communicate that to families so that they know this is an option for them now?
Yes, so I think that when they you fill out the questionnaire, there's a specific question in terms of if your child needs reasonable accommodations, and it says reach out to the director, because a lot of these are case by case. I think the families don't realize that we don't have access to school records, we don't have access to IPs or 504s or whatnot. So what families tell us, that's what we go by, right? But very often, so what I said is, okay, this is our program, this is how it works. And I actually invite families to come in and say, come in, you can see how the program works, and you can decide. You decided you want to give it a try, let's do it. And that's how we've been doing. So they try out the program. We have had kids who are very successful in after school. They might not be doing very well in the morning, but they do very well in after school. Some children need a little bit more structure, so there's a struggle there. So it really is case by case. But I think that question there, and we can certainly expand our options to how we communicate that to families, for sure.
Just wondering about you talked about the surplus and the account balance. I know in the Q2 report, we were, as of December 31st, right, we were at 2.1 million in the community schools account. Did you say, where are we at? Maybe you or Glenn, just like most recently, or where do we expect to end up at the end of this year?
I do not have that immediately available as of right now. I'm happy to share with you. Do you have access to the?
I mean, we ended last year at 1.95, so I don't see how we'd end up if we have as expected budget profit essentially in the program of $175,000.
You do have to be a little careful when you say you end the year at 1.95, because that's on June 30th, you've collected a lot of summer school tuition, but you haven't
Correct.
had any,
Haven't paid it.
out yet. So June 30th isn't necessarily the best date to look at a fund balance for the community schools.
Sure, but I
so
mean,
that's what you have to do is look at that year over year. If you really want to see how I would look at June 30th one year versus June 30th the next to sort of see how that year went. But there is I would have to, I think probably June 1st is probably a cleaner year because you're not really collecting at that point or late May.
No, I actually do it in February because we do our summer program opens in March, and that's when we start collecting for that. So the last slide where it shows the estimated total, that I usually don't go by what our system shows because I have to separate everything. So it's quite a lot of work to put that together, but I can certainly give you that number. I just don't have it right now.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I think it's just, we do, I know within your presentation, there's a concern about long-term financial stability within the program, right? With $1 million deficit projected if we reach full staffing. I think, I'm not particularly concerned about that given, again, our inability at this point over the last couple of years, like to get to full staffing,
Correct.
right? Like if we were at full staffing this year, we'd be at a deficit or not. You're saying we're going to make just under $200,000. I think.
On March 31st, we're at just almost exactly $2 million.
Okay.
On March 31st.
Thank you.
So I guess one of my questions is like, it is nice having a $2 million balance to the point you make, like not force ourselves to jump the tuition rates higher prematurely, especially in a situation where we don't, we hope to get to these extra 65 positions. We don't know we will. But I'm also aware of the fact that we are taking money from current participants to use on future programming when really like the money that they spend should be going to their own child's experience. And so like the people who are paying this year, right, were fifth grade families who won't have access to this next year, or other families who might not enroll next year are paying at a rate that's assuming a higher staffing ratio than they're actually receiving. And so that's why we're making this like extra $175,000. So I guess my only question would be like, have we discussed some type of payment holiday for current families, similar to how a health insurance premium holiday works, where if you're paying more into a program than the program's actually needing, you give them time. You don't charge them, keep charging the money and just increasing the benefit. And so that way the savings actually goes back to the families who are currently paying into the program and currently experiencing it. And that still leaves us with $2 million, $1.8 million surplus from prior years that we have in our back pocket for if the staffing expansion occurs. So I'll just throw that out there.
We do have a very generous financial assistance program. So we there's really not a limited amount that we provide, and we have a large, well, not super large, but a good number of families who benefit from this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
No, it doesn't compare to what you just said. But
No. It makes me, having a $2 million budget line item that continues to grow year over year just, makes me concerned that that's not fair to families who are paying into that and not receiving the kind of necessary value because while our numbers are on the lower end, we're still taking more money than we need to run the program. And I think in my mind, ideally, the program is revenue neutral, right? What it costs us is what we ask families to pay. And if those costs, in the future, as our costs rise to run the program because our staffing ratios increase, we would fully expect that we'll need to go back to families and ask them to pay more in order to cover that cost. And right now, when we don't need them to pay more and we're actually making money, I think it would be beneficial if we gave that back. So those are all my questions. I really appreciate it. I do just want to name as a comment, again, my kids are in the program, love the program, love it, the experience. My son does fencing, loves fencing. It's great. You got wonderful people running this.
A wonderful family, so all works out.
I mean, I guess one thing I would just say in relation to that question around the fund balance is that fund balance has been, accumulated over a long period of time, right? So you can't rectify. I mean, you could with a current group, but we're also the program is currently operating not in a way it's intended to. So, if you look broadly at our own budget and ending fund balances, we do have sometimes the opportunity to move that back to the town or taxpayers, or invest in the future for student experience in whatever it is, right? So that's just the one thing I think about in trying to solve this issue, which we're kind of stuck here talking about how many staff we need and how to expand this program, that it may be challenging to do that if we don't have the funds to, and of course this, I believe this would support current students and future students if we can. I mean, if we continue to, I mean, this is year one really where we've tried to make a dent, right? I guess I feel like if we continue to be in a position where we're trying to make these changes and this fund balance continues to grow, we've got to do something about it. And I think, I mean, I heard that kind of loud and clear when we started talking about this in the fall.
Yeah, I agree. I just say it has been growing for, as you say, many years. Yeah. It's still growing this year, right? And so, what at some point do we just allow to, if it's like, is it next year now in the fall if it's still growing because we can only hire 15 other people? Just at what point do we, this shouldn't be, I think, an income source where then we're using it for other means, or like it should be a kind of self-run program with, obviously it's never going to be dollar for dollar, so there should be some balance in there, hopefully positive and not negative. But yeah, just $2 million feels like a lot.
And it is an independent program, so that's why the reserves are there, because it can't just be reallocated to Milton Public Schools budget needs, because it is its own organization.
What would a proper balance be for an organization?
Well, normally for an organization, you try to hold between 3 and 6 months of your operating budget. So, I mean, we're at 12 months at the moment, more or less. The issue I would say with giving rebates back to the family is at different times of the year, it's different families. The folks in the summer enrichment, Camp Cunningham, are not necessarily the folks in the after school or before school program, not necessarily the folks in the vacation camp program and those things. So it's not a uniform group of folks through the year, although there's certainly a lot of commonality. Yeah. But I was just thinking logistically how I would do that. You'd have to sort of portion it out by program or something like this.
And I think of that reserve differently. I think of that reserve as an opportunity here, sort of an argument to be made of improving, adult to student ratio. That's an investment back into the model to improve its quality. So if we, the research begin to draw down and you're saying to families, we're going to get even better quality, right? Because the ratios are going to go down, it's an investment back into the program that I may not immediately benefit, but sort of my community members will benefit down the line. And so that's, I think as long as the reinvestment is there and it's not seen as, we want this reserve to keep growing.
No, we don't.
But we want it to be healthy, right? So you want to make sure that you can have those 3 to 6 months. So I'm not, and because I think we're at a lower cost than what it would be, I also looked into what it would cost me to have somebody do it individually. And I was like, we do sort of get it's a good benefit to community, to families, and we do have sort of that opportunity for folks to get assistance if they need it. So that's important too. So I'm less concerned about that. I just hope that our vision towards quality, improving quality and expansion do materialize. So we won't have, I think, this reserve issue down the line.
And I also agree with what you have mentioned earlier with the CAS that are offered by the individual school teachers or principals. If there's any collaboration that we can happen, so it can also solve the space issue, right? Because the CAS classes also take place inside the classrooms, and it would take away the classroom that you guys might use for after school program anyway. So it solves both the staffing issue and increase the enrollment issue and also the space issue if there's any collaboration between the school itself and the after school program. So my question is, why is there a $25 fee for just answering the questionnaire of interest?
That's a good question. So we wanted to basically, if we looked at this in many different ways. We thought at first of putting out just a Google form, simple Google form with a name, student, grade, and school. We were afraid that we were gonna get back a lot of inquiries that not necessarily needed the after school program. Because there's no cost, there's no effort, just fill out a form, and it will create the doing a lottery even more challenging, not for us, but for families who now are missing out of being in the program because somebody decided to put their name in and they might not need it, but they got in. So now they have a spot and they might be taking a spot from somebody who really, really needs it. So the idea of doing the 25 came behind that. Now, that's completely refundable. If we can't accommodate children, that goes back to the family.
And if you accommodate the children or the family, does it go into the tuition of the first?
It's an administrative fee. So it does not go into the tuition. That's actually money that we're gonna put aside for scholarships.
Okay.
Every single program that you can, feel free to call. Every single program has an administrative fee. We have not charged any fees for, since I can remember. We also, and I didn't mention this, but my school bucks, if you choose to pay online currently, we reduced the percentage last year from 4.6 to 2.7. And starting this year, actually starting at the end of May, we are going to be absorbing the cost of the processing fee. So families now that choose to pay online don't have to pay any administrative, processing fees online.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you very much for
Thank you.
Thank you.
all the information and the conversation. Thank you, all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we'll move into the chair's report, and the first item is going to be quick because it's just our vote on the school choice recommendation that we already had the opportunity to discuss. So if it's okay with everyone, I'll just go right ahead and make that motion. The motion is that Milton not be a school choice district for the FY25 school year. So by voting yes, you're saying we will not be school choice.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, so all in favor of that motion? Okay, thank you. That's unanimous. So we'll just keep moving into the subcommittee advisory committee assignments. So I want to apologize because I neglected to move this document into our folder until shortly before our meeting. So hopefully we can just walk through it right now. I hope that it reflects the conversations I was able to have with you individually as far as your assignments for next year. So it is in our folder now. in sort of keeping with the theme of looking to maintain stability and consistency to carry our momentum forward on this work, we are actually not making a ton of changes. I'll just give you a minute to look through that. You can see at the top our proposed finance policy and superintendent evaluation subcommittees, our assignments for advisory committees. So obviously, Amanda, you're being sort of added in here to a subcommittee, to an advisory committee. Thank you, Selena, for stepping up to do the MFB representative role. So Lisa Troy, I will say, did indicate to me that she would be happy to continue serving in that, and I will make sure that she has the opportunity to come and bring us a spring update. She last visited with us in the fall, but she did indicate she was willing to continue representing us if we wanted her to do that. So any questions or discussion of what we have here?
Thanks for putting it together.
Thank you all for serving in these roles. We all know how much time and effort goes into these assignments. So it's a lot, and a lot of important work happens in these various groups. So as you can see under the subcommittees, I have not identified chairs for those. When we talked about our policy, our handbook, school committee operating procedures, we discussed the best practice of having the subcommittees sort of like confirm these roles in their first official meeting of the newly formed subcommittee. So for example, I know that policy we meet next week, right? So maybe we can just have on our agenda like chair confirmation or what have you. And finance should have a meeting and just make that official as well amongst yourselves. And then superintendent evaluation is not something that needs to be decided, I don't think, until we would begin meeting next fall, which is when we would restart that process. In the meantime, under the devolved responsibilities, which is an element of what we're voting to approve tonight, sort of confirming here that in terms of who's authorized to sign our vendor warrants on behalf of the school committee, it would be the school committee chair, who I have been doing that, and it will be the finance subcommittee chair. But we can that's for consistency's sake, and we've talked about trying to revise our policy so that that is just like embedded and we don't have to actually like vote every year for who are the individuals to do that. It's just an automatic thing. All right, so are we ready to approve this? Okay. Let's see. So I will make a motion to approve the Milton School Committee, Subcommittee, and Advisory Committees as presented.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. The last part here for me is going to be very quick. That's just a kind of heads up, summer meeting schedule. So typically we try to sort of wrap up our meetings around when school wraps up for the year, to not have our 2 meetings a month as scheduled through July, and to really come back in August with a retreat, which we'll need to schedule around not just our availability, but probably sequence of your retreats.
Yep.
Do you know when those are yet?
I do, yeah. The 5th through the 7th, the 12th, and the 20th.
Of July? I'm sorry,
No,
August.
Yeah.
5th through the 7th, the 12th, and the 20th.
Yeah.
So would it be, so just generally speaking, do you envision a best time to have the school committee retreat in relation to those? Would it be after all 3 of them, or can it happen earlier on?
It could happen earlier. I think it should happen earlier. Would be better.
So, because all I'm going to be requesting that we all do is in our document, our folder, Charlene created these 2 calendar pages. And this is something we started, I think, last year, where we just put our not available on here. So if we're on vacation, if we know that we're not going to be around, this is really for the purpose of settling our retreat date, which typically has gone kind of like a late afternoon through the evening. It could be 5 p.m. So it's not during the workday per se, but we would hope to be in person together.
It could be the week of the 12th. I mean, the 12th is one of those retreat dates, but the 13th through the 16th are open.
Okay, well, Bao is away. She's putting this in real time.
Oh, right. Where are you writing this?
I am
On that doc?
It is blowing up. We're all going to some amazing vacations. Okay. So, so let me just say, I don't want to take the time right now to hash this out. We will have to figure that. I actually don't know what we're going to do as I'm looking at this.
I want to give you more details so we don't have to
So I guess we can't do August.
We can't do
Sorry.
August 1st.
Okay.
What about last week of July? I know it's not on this calendar.
That would be before your retreats, though.
Yeah.
That's
what he said. I think that
would be okay.
July
we
is
have
good.
You'll have your
planning
implementation document.
Yeah, and we'll have our planning day the end of June 26th, I think it is.
Oh.
I mean, I think there's going to be enough of a frame where it could kind of fall.
So how about this? There is also a separate July page.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to request that each of us does our best to fill those 2 months out with the dates you are not available. I will work with you and Charlene to see what our options might be, and I will then follow back up with everybody. So that's what we're really aiming for, is just at this point in time, our hope, unless something really comes up, is that our final full school committee meeting for this school year will actually be June 5th, which is just one more meeting after this one. If we're able to I know this meeting's already running a little late for us. Amanda, we try to end our meetings by 9 usually, so.
I know.
But if we have a couple of full meetings, I think, and even if it means on June 5th, we have a pretty full night, that would allow us to conclude our business as a school committee before the school year ends, or as the school year ends, because 2 weeks after that is Juneteenth. And that would mean we're pushing a school committee meeting to June 26th. So we'd love to avoid that if we don't have to do that. But at that point, we would look to reconvene for our retreat. And then typically it would be August 21st that we come back, right? Because isn't it usually the Wednesday before school starts that we have our first regular school committee meeting of the year? So we have...
Summer's already gone, it feels
well,
like.
so it looks like, so we might have a couple members missing on that day. If we have a quorum, we probably do need to meet that week, because we'll need to we'll need to approve the handbooks and things that need to get done before the beginning of the year, right? But that's fine as long as we have 4 people who are able to come. So to be continued. Just
There's
please.
ever remote? Or is that in person?
The 21st?
Yeah, the end of the, yeah.
So starting on the 21st, my expectation is those meetings will be like hybrid meetings like we have here, where yes, any of us can Zoom in and participate in the meeting from wherever. Yeah, absolutely.
Makes it easier.
So as long as there were four of us who were able to like join, even if by Zoom. Yeah. But we don't have to worry about that right now. If you can just fill those out by that, like with what you know of this week, I think it would help if we can just start to hold a date. Okay.
Yeah, and Charlene can organize this too. If that's easier.
Yeah. So once we've all put our stuff in here, then yeah, I'll kind of hand it off to her, and she can.
Great.
We can figure it out. All right. So that's it for me for the chair's report. I think we are postponing the Climate Action Planning Committee report for this evening, and we'll just move right on to Finance Subcommittee report. And I know that we haven't yet met for the Finance Subcommittee, but we do have vendor warrants to approve. So should I just go ahead and do these? Does anyone else feel like saying anything?
Sure, I'll make a motion. Make a motion to approve the following vendor warrants. Vendor warrant 43 in the amount of $580,994.31 payable on 5/2/24. Vendor warrant 44 in the amount of $177,177.70 payable on 5/9/24. And vendor warrant 45 in the amount of $678,207.59 payable on 5/16/24.
Second.
All in favor?
Wasn't sure if I did that or not.
Great. Okay. Facilities?
Yeah, we met today, earlier today, chatted about some upcoming work that's happening this summer, some of it related to the Cunningham 4th floor, the continuing plan to clear that space out to make it usable in some way for the start of next year, and just discussion of what that would take. It was a nice meeting. Tom McCarthy, the new Consolidated Facilities Director, was able to join us for the first time, which is great. It was wonderful having his presence. We talked about other space things related to the increased kinder enrollment next year and the impacts that will have. And I think we mentioned last time, a lot of those new kids are coming from East Boston, so trying to put those students assigned to
East Milton.
East Milton.
You're thinking Brooklyn.
They're coming just that way. We need a new bus. Yeah, sorry. East Milton. Coming over to Collycott and or Cunningham to make that more convenient for those families in the long term. So just again, how do we make space in those buildings? Things like that. Some of the committee members had done some investigation into some of the issues we had seen around like document storage and had brought back some reports on that, as well as some work Glenn had done on that. So I feel like we're in a good place for that to help clear out some space that's currently being taken up by just paper. And I think those are most of the things we chatted about, but anything else we missed?
No, and I think with document storage, or digitizing it, it's really to clear up some space in each of the buildings as a way to create short-term space.
That's it.
Okay. School building?
Yeah, we had a school building meeting on Monday, had a presentation or discussion with the architects. Peter and the architect and one of their sub-consultants just shared information on some of the visioning sessions that have been going on, where Peter can maybe, if we want to share a little bit more on that, but that was great to hear just on the internal work that's happening with Peter and his team to kind of refine programmatic ideas for the new space in order to help inform the designs. We talked about the timeline. The timeline continues to be tight in order to get to, again, our continued goal is to get to a vote in the fall. And so there's just a lot of work that needs to be done to refine plans, get to a place where we can get good budget estimates that we can then share with people, and so they can be informed as they consider this and the impacts on tax assessments, things like that. So talked about that. We shared, the chair of the committee shared an update as to the status of the land swap legislation that is still sitting with the Senate, State Senate. It needs a third reading from the State Senate, and then we'll go to the House. And so there's no particular issue at this time. There's just waiting on the legislative process to move forward. But we are hopeful, we are concerned, and want to make sure we're, I guess, doing what we can to push our legislative representatives along to make sure that that goes through before they retire in July, in this legislative session in July. So just a lot of those things that need to happen. I think Peter and the team are also moving forward with doing a visit next Friday to go see some preschool programs. We were able to see some middle school programs several weeks ago, and so doing a similar thing just for some new preschool sites that is, again, being arranged by the architect and their subconsultants. So that'll be exciting for the team. Anything else on this?
Oh, you got it all.
Anything you want to share?
I think I shared it a little bit earlier, but I think the process has been interesting to push the people that are going to be in these buildings and envisioning what that could be, and not thinking about where they're coming from, but what's possible. So I think we're doing a lot of learning very quickly. As Mark mentioned, it's a tight timeline, so we're really trying to dig in, and working with Arrow Street has been really good. They're a solid firm, so that's been helpful. And we're also, I've shared with them that I don't want to rush and make decisions around, sharing programmatically where we are as we're working on the implementation plan. Like, we have to do this work really well, and we can't just rush and say that one, just picking stuff off the shelf, so to speak. So we're looking at the spaces too in a kind of future visioning of, as our understanding of pedagogy changes over the decades. We're not designing this for tomorrow. We're designing this for 2080, right? So in thinking in that way, like, let's build a building that has flexibility, kind of fluidity, and collaboration built into it. So thinking about some of our values, as opposed to thinking about, we need this exactly, and this exactly, and this exactly, because our population's going to change, the needs are going to change. So let's make the space flexible as our understanding of teaching and learning changes and grows over time.
And I got to say that was the exciting part about sort of hearing that discussion.
Yeah.
That it wasn't sort of limiting ourselves to what has been or what is right now, but really thinking futuristic.
Yeah.
And how do you create space that works for a diverse group of student needs and teachers' needs. Like, I thought that was really exciting to just hear that conversation and that thinking coming into the design, because this is an opportunity. And then I was like, and then we're going to have a lot of envy. And then we're going to want to remodel all the other schools. That's in the future. But no, it's exciting.
And I think that's a really great concept. And so is the plan to, like, once you've kind of done that and built the school, go back to the other schools and kind of reimagine those spaces as well? Because you'd want similar experiences, right, for the students throughout their 13 years or 14 years.
Are you going to be on that school building committee?
Hopefully I'll be 2080. I don't know where I'd be. But that's a good point. Wouldn't even know where. Probably wouldn't even know where I am at that point, right?
2080. Let's say I'll be 110.
By then,
that school committee will take care of it.
We'll all be immortal. Medicine will have advanced.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a really great concept. And so is the plan to, like, once you've kind of done that and built the school, go back to the other schools and kind of reimagine those spaces as well? Because you'd want similar experiences, right, for the students throughout their 13 years or 14 years.
Help, I'll be retired.
Oh, man.
I probably die already.
Well, that's all good. That's exciting. Thank you. Okay, well, policy, Anna.
All right, so we have not met in a while, so we meet next week. And so for policy, we have a second reading and vote of the Section D policy recommendations, which there is a little summary sheet in our folder with all of Dr. Pavlicek's comments, which makes it very simple to follow. So thank you, Dr. Pavlicek. And then we also have the residency policy with the edits that were requested from last time, along with some supporting documents in the folder as well. So for Section D policy, we have, we're approving the following MPS policies with no edits. Policy DA, DB, DBD, DBE, DDA, DDC, DEC, DFD, DKC, and there's an explanation next to each of those. And then approve the following policies as edited: the DBG policy, the DC cash management policy, the DGA authorized signatures, DIE, DJGB, and the JFAA residency policy. And then finally adopt MASC versions of the following policies, which is the DBC, budget deadlines and schedules, DBJ, DD, DH, DI, DJA, DJE, DK. And so I'm just going to stop there for discussions or anything like that, questions, before I go into motions.
In the edited policies, there's also DJ that wasn't listed.
Okay.
Is up for second edit. That's in your other document, which for some reason not on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn.
For the purpose of discussion, I wonder if we should just sort of have the Section D as one chunk of things, and then the residency as a separate conversation. We could
do you want me to make a motion to approve then Section D? Or should we wait and do that at the end?
I mean, you can make a motion. We can, for the purpose of discussion, then we can. And because I was also I was telling Amanda that we've all been in her shoes too, right? You're coming in here. We did a first reading at our last meeting, so it's definitely your opportunity to ask any questions you may have. Right, acknowledging this is like a lot to digest.
It is.
So I should also mention, this is the kind of situation you would be more than, if you choose to abstain from voting these, that would be totally understandable because you weren't part of the discussion that got us to this point. So just to put that out there.
And then and I'm sure Lizzie's mentioned, but we're just trying to streamline the policies and kind of go through each of the section by section, and that's what we've kind of done this year.
Yeah.
Is go through each one instead of picking out certain ones. So there is a process, and the central office team has done a phenomenal job, just going through and identifying the ones that needed to be outdated, and so on and so forth. It's really, really kind of streamlined the process. So we'll just kind of keep moving forward. And then if there are certain policies that needed to be revisited, we will take more time and work on those as a committee. So, and also our policy subcommittee will be cross-posted, so you're more than welcome to attend on a Tuesday if you have nothing else to do.
That's great.
And it's kind of a once in a lifetime type of review. So, because it has been sporadic over the years, and some have been, lied dormant for 15 years. So this is really a chance to we're getting on a level playing field.
It's like a reset.
Yeah, reset.
Okay.
within the edits, I really appreciated when your comments of identifying what is an MASC versus like what is an MPS specific policy. Is there an idea of like within our policy manual, like at the start, essentially saying, hey, in section D, here's an overview of all of our policies. Like these are, again, MAS, because I think that's helpful too as I read through them to know like, okay, the language in this one isn't really up for discussion given it's an MASC policy. You're trying to fully align with MASC and not mess with it to a point I think you made.
Are you talking about like the public facing policy, or are you talking about internally?
Just talking about internally for like the next time we come through and review, not to need to say, hey, this is an MASC policy, this is an this is not. I think like that, all that work that y'all have been doing, being able to keep that for future assessments, in my opinion, would be really helpful.
Sure.
I would note that there were 6 D policies that are not in this list, and they were to be deleted as redundant. They're on our sheet. They were discussed last time, but they're actually not on in the listing on the agenda.
Okay.
Are they under the section D recommendations?
Yeah, they are. They're in the recommendations for section D. That's you have attached with it.
Yep.
And those you did look at them last time. They were.
So can we vote on that tonight, or will we post that for next time?
Well, your posting was for second reading and vote of section D policy recommendations. Those were section D policy recommendations that you considered last time, and they're a public document in here with this. So I would say, and where you're only deleting 6 policies is redundant, I would say sufficient to go ahead and do that. If it was a major change in them because they weren't listed, I would say hold off. But where they're just deletions of redundant policies, I'd say go ahead and include them. Get it done.
Do we just want to state them for the record?
Yeah, they are DBI, which is the Budget Implementation and Transfer Authority, which has been replaced by an MASC policy of the same letters. DIB, revolving funds, which is unnecessary, redundant to the law. DID, inventories, also unnecessary. All of these are actually unnecessary anymore as being redundant to either other policies or the law. DJGA, sales calls and demonstrations. We don't get a lot of sales calls in school anymore. And again, payroll procedures, DKA, and cash in school buildings, DM, which is incorporated into the new cash management policy, DC. So those 6 existing policies are no longer necessary. And again, they were discussed in policy. They were presented last time. They were in your folder for tonight.
Okay.
And I think your motion to approve the D policies as recommended covers it anyway, but it's worth saying out loud.
So I will make a motion to approve the second reading of the Milton School Committee Policy Manual, Section D, as revised. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
And Amanda's abstaining for the minutes.
For Maureen, who's listening.
Yes.
Okay, and then I think we have the residency policy for discussion.
Can I ask questions, because I don't know if so has this been read once before as well? So if my questions are redundant to things that were discussed before?
Don't worry about it.
Okay. So were there added checkpoints, for lack of a better term, from the previous policy? It was like before, was it K69? Is that correct? So we added in third, right?
Yes.
And then I guess the question I had two. So the post-enrollment verification and enforcement. Students who are enrolled in the Milton Public Schools but who attend an educational program outside of the town. So if you go to Blue Hills, Norfolk Aggie, or you're out of district, you have to reconfirm your residency.
That's a requirement
every year.
By
Has that
law,
always
right?
been the
I know for certain that Blue Hills and Norfolk Agriculture has been a requirement every year. I'm trying to.
So it's just that.
With the students who are in out-of-district placements, that can be done as part of the annual IEP meeting as well. I mean, because you're meeting with those families every year anyway.
Right.
To reconfirm their IEP.
So the only addition then really to this is families who are out of district. If that was already because just this, I'm only bringing it up because this came up like 5 years ago where they tried to increase the time for families, and I just don't. I guess that piece feels funny to your point because you're already meeting with families. Half the kids have a bus picking them up at their house. So, and I'm trying not to do this as somebody who's in this position, who's being asked, who now would have to reestablish residency every year. It just seems, is the reason because there's an expense for it as an out-of-district family versus any other expense for a student in special education, that they would have to reestablish residency more frequently?
I don't think it's the financial cost.
I think it's the financial.
No, it wouldn't be that.
What would be the reason if you have a child out of district that you would have to establish residency more frequently?
Well, for instance, for a student who's in a residential placement, we may know where the student is, but we may not know that the parents have moved necessarily. And I think this came out of, I know the history on the Blue Hill Norfolk agricultural side is that once you enrolled in Blue Hills, they were getting their tuition from us, and they really didn't care if they didn't live here anymore. And so we had to go to an annual on that. And this, I believe, is along those lines, but I wasn't involved with the creation of it. This one is very closely modeled on the Natick one, which is also in your folder. Danielle Wetmore, who's our Director of Student Services, looked at a variety of different residency policies in different places. Natick was one that was thought to be similar, being near a Framingham with having population coming in. They actually looked at the Boston exam schools as another one where people are often interested in getting in. And this one I think is very closely modeled on the Natick one. But I'm not sure about the out-of-district language, frankly.
And this is current language, so this isn't an addition in this policy.
Then I would say it's a policy that hasn't been followed.
Maybe not, yeah.
Yeah,
but
as a family who's been out for 7 years, I've never had to do this, except if I hit so it was raised years ago that families out of district would have to do it more frequently, and I know that there was a lot of pushback just for that reason, because if it's not a financial reason, then what is the reason?
Yeah.
So it just feels kind of discriminatory against families who are out of district, as opposed to any other reason. So that's just my question on why, because that would be the only other educational program outside of the town other than those two. So I guess that's my question.
Yeah. Glenn, do you know the genesis of that language?
No.
Okay.
I remember discussion of it that you're referring to years ago. But I was not involved in the creation of this one, so I'm not too sure. And
I mean, it could have been like in terms of like costs and students like not in the physically in schools, in and out of placement. Maybe the thinking was to like a check-in to make sure that but like you said, I mean, there's lots of ways that there's a lot of interface with the district when you're in one of those programs.
Right. So I guess it's just if it's if this is as it exists, then it's not done consistently. So there are 62 families who every year will have to do this. And if there's a reason for it, I don't think that it's clear the reason why. If we're saying it's not about finance, then why are we asking these families to do it? If we're not getting back, if it's a school, they're likely in conversations with the district every year about increases in tuition and those sort of things. So it's just, I guess that's the only one where I was reading it and it seemed to just sort of jump out that it was inconsistent.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any thoughts. And I guess my only question, and again, I guess
And we can talk to the residency coordinator too, to ask if she knows if there's some kind of basis for how, why it's in the current, because this, like I said, this isn't a new, not new language, but yeah, it's a good question.
But if there's no good reason, I think to your point, it could be changed. We have an opportunity to change an act.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's the whole point.
Yeah, right.
And Blue Hills and Norfolk Aggie were added in here. Like, are they asking for this information?
Well, Glenn was mentioning we needed to do that.
We currently do annual residency on Norfolk Aggie and Blue Hills because we have encountered problems with that in the past, where once they go there, we don't hear from them again. We have no contact with them.
Right.
And
it's a different
encountered a case where people have actually moved out of town,
and still
but are still going to Blue Hills, and we're still being billed for them because they were ours when they went there, as opposed to where they are now. So that's
I see.
And so Blue Hills and Norfolk Agriculture were part of the policy for a while.
Yeah.
The issue of when you talk about what's current and what's part of the policy, it's currently part of the procedure for these things. But the actual policy, if you look at JFAA, doesn't spell out the current, the new policy incorporates the procedures into the old policy, which was much shorter, didn't go into what you need for residency, didn't actually say 612 kindergarten, even though that was a vote of the school committee years ago, and that became, it became the procedure, but it was never really incorporated into the policy. You look up JFAA.
JFAA states grades 6 and 9.
Yeah, and students
and
who enroll
6 and 9,
in Milton Public Schools, but who
it is.
No, it's there.
Yeah, so we're saying the difference between the two programs you're mentioning is the lack of touch points. Obviously, students who are out of district placements who have IEPs have at least a touch point with the annual, sometimes potentially more. So it's not quite the same. There's still less touch points than a kid who is in the district, obviously every day. But equating it, the question is like, which of those two is it closer to? Is it closer to Norfolk Aggie, or is it closer to a student who attends every day? And I think you were saying, Glenn, that the primary issue is, again, that you don't need to have any touch point with those people at Blue once they enroll for the next 4 years. There's actually no need to ever hear from them again. So the risk there being significantly greater than an out-of-district placement situation. Although, I mean, I'm trying to think of what the annual IEP documentation says around, parents state address within that, and they sign and dates and things like that. But you don't need to show, obviously, proof of residency, but there's information around where you live.
Right. And they're picking you up literally every day from your house. If you're getting the district typically does transportation, so they're coming to your house and picking you up. So
what about a residential program?
They wouldn't, but you'd still have the annual IEP and the placement meeting every year. They have to confirm placement. So and I understand it's a cost. It's just if we're not looking at, if that's the reason for it.
In my mind, any residency policies around again, if the concern is risk of non-residents attending the school, and therefore, again, I guess in a certain way there being a cost associated with educating people that you're not receiving tax dollars from. And so it's how are we in a reasonable way, mitigating the risk to the town, which is why we're adding an additional checkpoint of third grade. So again, whether or not a need to do that annually basis for, I think, the point you're raising, and like treat that at much greater, I think, is a reasonable question.
This could also be a blanket. I mean, the policy could be stating a blanket around programming, but you mentioned if it's happening or not. We know we're doing Blue Hills and Norfolk, but this may be just general language that's not specific enough. But in actual practice,
Right.
different. So anyway, we can
I think,
definitely do some more research on it.
And then I guess to that same point, is the reason for students with disabilities in there noted, because it's a residency policy, but then I'm just not sure why that would be in here. Other than saying it's the financial responsibility of the city or town in which the student resides. But if this is the residency policy, is that information needed?
Where are you
It's
looking?
It's V.
Roman
page
numeral
4.
V.
I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
noted, but I don't know that that goes in a residency policy.
I agree. I don't know what it necessarily adds.
That's taken right out of the.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see exactly what that adds to the policy. One way or
It's
the
more
other.
about fiscal
Right, responsibility.
responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
I can see why it's there, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, I'm just cross-referencing it.
It reminds me of questions that I get asked regarding pre-K, and why we can't just not pay to have our pre-K program.
Right.
I think it is a bigger question of like, what's the purpose of policy? Is it to just provide information that informs people in relation to the topic at hand? I mean, I think it's there as a reminder that this is what the district is required to do. But I think we've talked about this in policy going back before you were here, Peter, like, it is ultimately redundant to cite laws in our policies because the law will always supersede our policy at the end of the day.
Other than what's one, McKinney veto, I never say that one right. Like that would be,
Vento, yep.
Vento you would see being in there because it's
Yeah.
applicable.
Yes.
Yeah, but not this one, you're right.
So,
The other issue with that language, now that I'm thinking about the language you're citing about out of district, it also applies to Milton students who are attending, for instance, charter schools in Boston, and we get charged on the cherry sheets for their tuition. So, there are cases where we have students, other than Blue Hills, Norfolk, and out of district, where we are getting, it would be charter schools that will charge back through the cherry sheet. So, and we do have, there are Milton students who attend charter schools in other districts.
Yeah.
And I don't know to what extent residency is checked there versus, so you get the source of the charge back, I have a feeling if I went to a charter school in Boston and said I live in Milton, I probably wouldn't have to prove that too often.
Yeah. Well, it's because they prefer you to live in Boston because they pay more per pupil
Yeah.
than we do. So that's the one good thing about our per pupil. Nobody's trying to push kids to Milton residency. But for Blue Hill and Norfolk, the responsibility of confirming the residency is on those institutions, or our staff reach out to
staff.
those families?
Our
Okay,
staff.
So are you saying our staff also reach out to
Yes.
families of students who attend charter schools as well to confirm residency?
This allows them to.
This
I
allows
don't
whether or not
know
it
to
does.
what extent they do it. In the same way that it allows that for an out-of-district student. But, you're saying it doesn't actually happen.
Yeah. The allowed to piece is the piece that I'd be, again, just concerned about. Obviously, we're
Fairness
not
and
gonna-
equity and so
equity
forth.
of implementation of what situation we're enforcing and not.
I think making it specific to cases where there's a logical reason to do so makes sense. And then not have an umbrella that's vague and.
That was it. That was my
That's good points.
Yeah, no,
Do we
that's
know how
good.
many kids, if we were to cut out the non-Norfolk and Blue Hills, how many kids are, it seems like she was saying about 60 for out-of-district placement for special education purposes, and then how many for charters, and then is there any other bucket?
We have currently, I think, 65 who are out-of-district place. In terms of charters, I would say we have roughly 6 to 8 who are in charter schools. Norfolk Aggie is about 10. Blue Hills this year was 34. Those are the, and I'm thinking of other buckets.
Private school.
Sorry?
Private schools.
But we're not paying for
Yeah,
the
that doesn't
private
matter.
schools.
But you're paying for the services for the kids who go to like St. Mary's.
Yes, well, they're actually, if you go to St. Mary's and have an IEP, we have to service it. But,
Pay tuition.
That's not part of the out-of-district?
no, that's not
It's
out of district.
if you go to a private school within your town, the town is responsible for the IEP services.
It's not even in your
Not
town.
for the, not for the full
Not even in
tuition.
your town. If you go to BC High and have an IEP. Now, we're not going to send someone out to BC High to
Right. service
it. We're going to invite you back for services. We do send someone to St. Mary's and St. Agatha's and so forth. But those are actually in our student information system in a special category. So I'm thinking they probably do get residency checks. I will
But probably on
verify
the standard,
Yeah.
not the annual.
that. Probably not on the annual.
Yeah.
Well, of course, again, if you're talking to a student who's receiving services, you have an annual IEP, and we're back to that. So you have an annual meeting with the family as well.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think the point Amanda's making, right, that
Right.
those two buckets are, should be treated together because the risk is essentially the same, right? This is again a risk mitigation strategy.
It seems to be a question of what the content of an annual IEP meeting is fairly specific. And you start getting into residency as well with it, you may be crossing some federal lines. I mean, it's a good thing to do at the same time, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
And, I don't think the residency can be part of that meeting. It's got to,
I think it'd be, as you said, an interesting question to ask Danielle.
Yeah.
To talk to.
Yeah.
Check in before we.
Yeah. And if other districts do it, I understand the reason, you know what I mean? Like, I know that it is an expense, but I just think if there's, it feels very vague the way it's written. And having an understanding of that would be helpful.
So then we should probably bring this back at our next meeting, right?
Sure.
Okay. Great.
I do appreciate the adding of the exception, clarifying around the renovation. I think that's
That's good.
helpful. And referencing
We struggled
McKinney
with
window is
some of the, with C, we struggled to figure out how to not create too much of a, too much vagary around it. So we felt like this, we just kind of thought this, we could work with this.
Yeah, this seems clear and reasonable.
I mean, every situation is different in this kind of thing,
Right.
but I think this would allow us the ability to take care of a family who's in this situation.
Yeah.
When you do a renovation like that, do you typically, if it's a major one where you have to move out, at what point do you typically get a certificate of occupancy? Do you know? Only because if that's a criteria, if they've received
We haven't
one.
been doing this.
Right, no, I'm just thinking like
Before.
if you're, like I've had friends who've done that, they still own their home, but they're renting something while it's being built. I guess that's where it gets.
Well, so they haven't enrolled yet? They haven't
They've been enrolled in the district.
Yeah.
They've bought a house, they're gutting the house, so they can't live in it, but you still own the house and that's their residence, and say they had to move someplace. How does that, I guess, do you have a certificate of occupancy as you're doing that?
No, it's after your construction is done.
After it's done, so.
So that the order of that doesn't make sense.
Right,
Yeah.
because you're waiting for that as the final step so you can move into your house.
Oh, so is your question whether that's even feasible from the town of Milton to obtain it?
Because if
I was
you're,
thinking this was,
go ahead.
I was not thinking of it in the way that you're talking about it. I was, when I read this, I was thinking it was pertaining to like, I'm a resident of Milton, essentially like certificate of occupancy, not that the house is ready to move into, because then it wouldn't make sense.
So the language needs to be different.
Oh, 'cause that's an actual-
That's
that's
you
an
go to
actual
the
thing.
construction. Yeah, sort of my my house passed inspection
And
it's not ready to be occupiable.
Oh, so it just, the certificate of occupancy needs to be called something else because that is an actual literal form that
You get a
is not
certificate.
what you're asking for here.
Are you looking, so what is that, the way that you're referring to it, what is that, like you've gotten?
I think it was just basically a confirmation of residency.
Okay.
I mean,
From
if
the
you're,
town.
Right.
yeah, it probably wouldn't
And
be
there's
from the
like
town. It would be from us. Right? We would essentially just have to determine that, because you have to be a resident and then leave and come back, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be enrolled and deemed a resident to leave and come back.
Right.
Glenn, is there anything you can add to this interesting? Where does this language come from is my question.
Well, it just showed up today, obviously. It was in response, my understanding is it was in response to the discussion at this table last time.
Correct.
And
I'm just
so I'm
wondering
not, the
certificate
certificate of occupancy, you're correct. I would say, first off, if students whose families are renovating their primary residence, the fact that you're calling them students tells me they're already in the system.
Student, yeah.
So they've already shown residency.
Yeah, correct.
So it probably should be enrolled if they provide a letter stating their intent to return in an approximate time frame, and special circumstances, including extensive renovation, will be reviewed by the superintendent's office. I think is fine. It's interesting. My first reading of this, I was thinking of a case several years ago where someone basically pretended to renovate their house. They put a porta potty out in front and moved Randolph. Wanted to leave their kids in the school because of various athletic teams and things like this, and did so for 2 years and then sold their house. It was very tricky because they said, we own the house, we're renovating it. But we're saying, but you live here, but we'll only live there because we're renovating. We'll be done next week. We'll be done in a month. We'll be done in 2 months. That was the case that came to my mind, which is, I don't think, the case that anyone was thinking of when you talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago. But yeah, I think that the last sentence covers that. The extensive home renovation gives us the right to look at it and say, if you're, been renovating your home for a year and a half, we really ought to ask you
what does the town of Milton provide?
Is it like a
provide us?
permit?
No, I mean, this says from the town of Milton. What would the
They
town of
do.
Milton?
The town of Milton does provide a certificate of occupancy.
but
the point
states
is
that you're-
you can't.
That when you
But I think what you want here, what you're looking for here is not a C of O, you're looking for a building permit.
So the problem
So could you
is
build a
that
building
that
permit?
doesn't
Exactly.
belong as
Building
a
permit.
proof of residency
Yes.
while you're not living in that house.
So I think
a building
just-
permit.
It's a building permit.
It's a building permit you're looking for.
Because that would say like
Because
what
then
you're
you
planning
know
to
that
do on
for-
your house
Right.
as well,
Prove
right?
that
You've
your house is
submitted
under
plans.
renovation.
They've been accepted, and you're going to do this
And then
work.
there's probably like
And
a,
so there is,
I can't remember what we did.
you
on,
can't
like,
just
is there
say
a
I'm working on it.
duration?
You
Like how
have a
long?
building
Yeah,
permit.
building
because
permit.
You have to
Yeah.
apply for that.
So it has to be a legit renovation.
Yeah,
Because I think there's a
you want
cost,
to
I
change
mean,
it to
I
building
believe
permit.
there's a cost for a building permit too, so
We're
it
going
would
to
be
call that a
legit.
typo.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, but either way, we're the discussion of the section about. So there's like 3 things that are getting essentially
Yes.
looked at by next time, right? That we've talked about.
In the residency policies that y'all shared, I couldn't figure out, none of them I seem to be able to find where it lists like we do of the specific grades other
I
than
didn't see that either.
kindergarten and pre-K.
It
Is
seemed
that,
like a one-time,
yeah.
the way I read
Some
it.
places do kind of spot checks. I know Brookline, I think, reported, this was just in communication, they
Yeah.
do like K in grade 5 and
Our
something.
series of checks is larger than most districts. Even the existing
Yeah.
K 6, 9 is more than a lot of districts do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just seem to be the initial, and then if we want to check, we'll do it. That's the way I was reading
Yeah,
the others.
verifications.
Yeah.
or- Well, then they have an annual, some have an annual verification you sign, I think,
Yeah.
listed. But I don't think it involves the other documents.
Documentation.
Yeah.
And of course, it was easier in some sense when you mailed report cards, because we would mail them, with the do not forward on them, and they would come back to us, and that would kick off residency checks. But now that report cards are through the parent portal, we lose that. And as we're doing less and less U.S. mail, we lose some of those checks as well.
Is there any, I mean, I do think that's important information to know, like, are we putting an excessive burden on our families compared to other places? And if so, why, right? If we are 200% increase in residency checks compared to our neighboring districts, like why? Why do we need that versus anywhere else? And so, I mean, I know this is a very small smattering of cities and towns, and I don't want to use up a ton of people's time, but
I was under an impression that we were adding the 3rd grade check to become in line with other communities, actually. I thought that was like how it was presented
I think
before.
every district is, there's no kind of one does it the same way. I mean, I don't think there's any kind of standard out there.
Are these the only 4 districts that we've done research on?
I think there are more, but I was not doing the research. Danielle couldn't be here tonight, but she was working with Serena on this.
Okay.
if there's an ability to have like some, again, comparison of the number of like purposeful checks, not just randomized, something comes up, obviously any district's going to check.
Yeah.
Compared to like our comparison districts with DESE or the usual towns that Milton likes to compare ourselves to, like I just think any of that would be helpful as we weigh whether or not this is necessary, or if we are actually, or if we're just adding additional work onto the district that, again, compared to other places is really not warranted.
Well, just to be able to help people understand that if we can actually help people understand that we already, with what we have, are doing more than our peer communities, like that would be important to be able to explain. And so if we are, as we've been discussing, adding another layer to that, like I think that would be very important. Well, I'll just say that would
really impact how I'm thinking about this. Like, to go from being an outlier to more of an outlier, like that is not what I thought we were trying to do. So I think that's, the more like data we can have to inform the changes that we're making is going to be important.
Yeah, I've got some notes here, but I don't think they're really clear on this.
Well, it's just a good thing to keep talking about. I mean, it's a big deal to.
Yeah, I mean, Brookline is, it says here, maybe grade 8 or 9, 7 or 8, and 5 or 6. So similar to what we do.
So I'm not trying, this might be like really unreasonable to suggest, but I am envisioning like that amazing kind of spreadsheet type of like preparation that we've been provided in our other policy revisions, where it sort of lays out like, this is what we have, this is what, in the case of the wholesale revisions, they've been using MASC as the touch point. And I know that our purpose in revising this was actually to branch off of the just reliance solely on MASC in order to like, be clear for our own community. But at the same time, because it is, we are revising this and don't want to have to come back to revise it again next year, right? The point is we're going to do this right, as you've been saying.
Right.
So maybe if best case scenario, we could get some of that additional information for 2 weeks from now so that we can still like wrap it up this year would be good.
Could you do it the way that, how they do the school choice grid? So it sort of says, it's almost in that vein of like, if you were similarly, if you were looking at towns, that kind of goes through and it says town, it's like school choice, yes, no, grades. Like you could do that, residency, grades checked. It's sort of that same snap, just like a quick snapshot if there was that information.
That's a good.
We probably won't get it for every district.
No, but
again, exactly, right around here.
Well, even if we just took started with the ones that that are our peer districts per DESI, that makes sense as like a group.
It's like Natick, Needham,
Sharon.
Wellesley, Sharon.
Sangamon?
Not for a DESI peer district, but
I just want to make sure there's no way to interpret what we're doing as a continuation of something that's been arbitrary. That's what I'm getting nervous about through this discussion. Like, I think we can just avoid that.
I mean, these recommendations did come from our residency coordinator who said, it would be good to have consistency, and right now we're kind of like K, then it goes all the way to 6, so K, 3, 6, 9, like.
Yeah, there's a total just rational.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, this wasn't just like randomly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think how it compares to others, I think is important.
Yeah.
I do think the language of the policy is way clearer than all these other ones I was reading.
It's definitely
and way better than what we had. So
it's really moving in a good direction.
Totally.
Maybe I don't know, Anna, do you think,
should we?
I know
bring
we
it
are
back
meeting
to
next week, so.
Policy, maybe we discuss it and then bring it back for the next.
Yeah, I mean, it might be good to talk about it at policy next week and
I think so.
vet it there and
Okay.
answer any final questions. And,
and just making sure that we have all the information we need before we bring it back.
Okay, so we're tabling it.
Yes.
Okay, well, this is a good discussion though. Thank you. And that just leaves a meeting minutes. We can quickly approve those minutes from, where are these minutes? May 1st, 2024. Did anyone have any changes to the minutes? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for, oh, shoot. Do we have April 24th too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, sorry. I missed that. Oh my gosh. Okay,
Quick read.
sorry.
Is the B Rose B Ross Denny? Bottom of page 2.
I do not know. I wouldn't think so because this is like her comments.
Yeah. Okay.
I think maybe it was Zadie Rose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's who that's referring to.
Okay.
I can add it in a comment. But I mean, she's obviously not here to be able to verify her own comments, so. Okay. Okay, I'm good. That's okay. So I guess we'll take these in two batches individually, since Amanda, you were not here for the first set of minutes. So, okay, let's see. I'll make a motion to approve the Milton School Committee minutes of April 24th, 2024.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. 5 of us with an abstention from Amanda. And that would leave, we'll make a motion to approve the Milton School Committee minutes of May 1st, 2024.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, great. We've talked for next meeting agenda items. We are going to have obviously policy, hopefully climate action planning. Just a reminder that the retiree reception takes place prior to our meeting at 6 p.m. I believe.
Yep.
In the courtyard downstairs. So that's a nice event to come if you can. And then we'll just start our meeting right after that. I don't know of any other big agenda items. Do you? At this point?
No.
I'm sure we might have other committee reports. If finance can meet between now and then.
Yes, I think we'll need to try to, so we can get somebody to sign those vendor warrants.
Right.
So you don't have to do it.
Yeah, so anyway, it's fine. We can figure that out later. We'll probably have some different subcommittees and.
We'll have school building, we won't have facility.
You will not have?
We will not have facility, we will have school building.
You will, okay.
You'll probably want an executive session to approve non-union wage adjustments for fiscal '25.
Great. Okay. Okay, well, as other things come up, we'll be able to add them. So, I'm sorry it's pretty late. Does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.